Here we are. We got about a minute in the song here.
Play my intro. You just give me some hand signals or WhatsApp me when you're ready.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Perfect.
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's Community Radio. We are still spilling the tea and committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
I've come to set the record straight.
All right.
All righty. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing?
Doing well. How about we do some headlines?
Are we ready?
We are ready. Stand by.
All right. So, as you know, did you say we're ready?
I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Good morning, Blake. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well on this Thursday morning. You have some headlines for us? What do we got?
Yes, absolutely. So there was the grand opening of the court yesterday. Every single year they do this, and it kind of sets the stage for what people can expect from the judiciary. And there were a number of stories that came out of that. We carried it live here on Bobo 89.1 FM. So stories including the fact that the court now has a protective unit established. So instead of using third-party security guards, they've taken this in-house and set up auxiliary staff, what they say will be uniform officers at various points. And that now will operate under the RCIPS. So they have the unit comprises of 14 auxiliary officers and a sergeant to be appointed later this year. So that was one of the announcements that came from the new Chief Justice of the Cayman Islands, Margaret Ramsey Hale. She also talked about the fact that they are setting up some new processes that will, improve the procedures at the court. And she has high expectations that they will increase their standing. Apparently, we had a much better standing at some point, and then it slipped over the years. And so that was one of the things that she hopes to return to, is just having a better grading and how, the administrators and the system in terms of like court listing and the time the trials take and all that stuff is somehow improved. So she's got a lot on her plate. And it's interesting, and we will certainly be watching and paying attention. This, she says, is a blueprint for court excellence, which is an international framework for the court. So in addition to that, attorney, let me get his name here, Richard Barton, who was speaking on behalf of the SILPA president, Eric Bodden, and SILPA is the Cayman Islands Legal Practitioners Association, talked about how they were going to be setting up, as it relates to judicial education, a centralized platform for legal and judicial education, that it's actually now available in the Cayman Islands. So this is quite interesting. Hadn't heard anything about this. So lots of moving parts in the legal fraternity, in the legal system. And we'll continue to keep an eye on that situation.
All right.
So there were 253 collisions reported during Operation Winter Garden.
Isn't that a lot?
That's a lot.
Talked about it yesterday. Yeah, that's
there's
a lot of car crashes on a small island.
Yep. During the month of December, the RCIPS said that they conducted Winter Garden to provide support for the social and economic changes that come around the holiday period. And at the end of the period, which ended on January the 2nd, officers reported that they had made 35 arrests in relation to drinking under the influence of alcohol. 13 collisions, which resulted in the for the entire year, there have been 13 collisions, resulting in the death of 14 individuals, which I think might be a record here on this island for the year.
It just seems like too many.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they said that essentially there were some 253 collisions during that period as well. So quite a number.
It would be interesting to know among the drink driving arrests, how many were under the old level or threshold, which was 0.10, or how many were, you know what I mean? Like how many between, what is it? Is it 0.7? 0.7.
Yeah.
Or 0.07.
We can certainly ask. They might be keeping that information. I don't know. But yeah, we can inquire. And finally, Cayman First continues to have some sort of growing pains as clients, both patients, and practitioners are complaining that they are still having issues getting their claims paid. The one person reached out to us yesterday yet again, and they've said that since we initially reported on the situation over at Cayman First in late October, it really hasn't gotten much better, that our initial reporting somehow caused them to make a few payments, and everybody was hopeful that, okay, now that you've ended up in CMR, you're going to get your act together. But it didn't last long, and most people received very minimal payments. And it continues to be the case that some medical facilities are owed hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And the facility in particular, we understand, was owed some $3 million. They may have received a substantial payment, but there's still lots of money out there on the streets that Cayman First needs to get sorted out. It's a computer glitch, and it's growing pains with a new system. Other people are really beginning to wonder.
Interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Those are your news headlines today.
All right, catch Sandy's show right now, kicking off on Bobo 89.1 FM. We won't see you tomorrow because I'll be live from the Ritz-Carlton, and so I'll be out there for the Cayman Cookout. So we'll talk to you on Monday for some headlines, all right?
Beautiful. Have fun.
You too.
All
Our
right.
segment with CMR.
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's community radio. We are still spilling the tea and committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
Come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold, hard truth.
Now, from the CMR studio in Grand Cayman, live, direct, it's the cold, hard truth. Now, join the conversation on 345-936-2626.
That number again is
345-936-2626.
Good morning, beautiful folks. How are you guys doing? Happy Thursday. Wow, this week went by quickly, I must say. Oh, we have so many topics on here, honey chill. Lots to talk about always, and I don't complain about that because obviously that gives me show content. What can I say? So we're gonna get it. We got a number of topics on our agenda this morning that we will be discussing. What a great show yesterday. Again, thanks to Dr. Paul Banerjee and the Cayman Islands Heart Foundation for coming on the program. It was very, very interesting and informative. And so last night, I found myself watching an episode of, not an episode, but watching a video on YouTube where there's this lady, this guy, sorry, he was 30 something at the time. I think this video might have been done about 6 years ago. So he's got to be in his 40s now. And he decided to embark on an extreme weight loss program where basically he went on it initially started out as a 40-day fast, water only, and then he increased it to 55 days because he was trying to break the world record. And I think the world record holder was like at 50 days or something for fasting without food. So he wanted to go that much, higher. And unfortunately for him, after all of that, I mean, he went a little extra days, extra 15 days. The Guinness World Record company decided not to acknowledge his world record because they don't want to encourage anybody else to try and break it. So I thought this was kind of interesting. So they wouldn't take it into account because they said that they were fearful that somebody else would attempt to break that record, which they saw as extreme and could end up killing themselves because, your body can only survive so long without food. So it was extremely interesting to see his journey. I must say that I thought he wasn't going to make it when I first started watching the video. I had my doubts. He was extremely overweight, over 300 pounds, and he ended up losing about 45 pounds and then a significant amount of his body fat. Those types of extreme diets, I mean, any physician will tell you is really not recommended. But, he did it. And really, he said it was, my apologies, less about the weight loss and more about, him wanting to prove that he could make food less of a focal point in his life. So he spent so much time thinking about food and, always focusing on food that it was a relief, he said, during the program to not have to do that 24/7, essentially. It was interesting. I don't know what else to say, except that, he lost a lot of weight and he lost a lot of inches around his waist and some around his neck and so on. And then one of his friends, a female friend that he had, they'd known each other for a really, really long time. And she did the 40-day one with him, but only she did juices, I think. So she did like a fruit juice fast while he was doing the water fast. The water fast is much more extreme, obviously. And she lost, oh gosh, I want to say she might have lost more weight than him even. Or she either lost just as much weight as him or more weight than him. So it was kind of interesting to see that going that additional extreme level didn't necessarily give him the weight loss that he thought, because he really did think he was going to lose a lot more weight. But of course, what your body does and your metabolism does when you go into this kind of starvation mode, it tries to conserve some of what you have because it literally thinks you're in the wild starving for some other reason. Let me refresh, KK. Give me a second. Let me just refresh the feed. But yeah, so that was extremely got to do it. And it got me to thinking a lot because he was talking a lot about his relationship with food. And we all have a relationship with food. There are those of us who eat to live and those of us who live to eat, honey, yeah. And so you've got to know where you are on the spectrum. There are people who have real addictions with food. I don't have a food addiction as much as I really do. I admit, I enjoy the culinary process. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy tasting different flavors. I love to see pretty food, good looking food. I love, oh my gosh, chefs are like some of my favorite people in the world. So Chef Remy, big shout out to Chef Remy. I mean, he can put a salad together, and when you look at the salad and you taste all the textures and different components, it's just totally amazing, right? So I think it's important, though, for us to evaluate our relationship with food. And sometimes our relationship with food changes because of stressful events in life. As we get older, there's always this creep of weight that comes on. I was never the fat kid. In fact, I was very, very slim as a child, right up until I got in university. I say slim, but it was probably more in the normal weight range. But for me, especially in high school, my collarbones were visible. And to me, I thought that was a little bit underweight, but nobody ever said that to me. I never, I ate what I wanted and there was no real like nutritional concerns. But as sometimes I look back at my pictures and I see like my collarbone protruding. I was like, oh God, no. So, I think there's a medium place, and where I'm trying to go with my 50 by 50 program is never to get back to that high school weight. 'Cause I think again, it was a little bit mager, as people would say. But it's going to be about 25, 30 pounds shy of that actually. So still a good weight. And those of us who hide weight really, really well. So people look at me and they have no idea. They're like, oh my gosh, you don't look that bad. And I say, I carry weight in the worst possible place, which is my abdominal section, really. And I got thunder thighs too, honey chill. And so that's not good because abdominal fat is a lot of that's internal and that's surrounding your organs. And that's what they call visceral fat. And that visceral fat, in fact, is the most dangerous when it comes to your heart health, which we were talking about yesterday. So really, the weight loss journey is more of a let's get healthier journey. And we've all got to make it a priority. I see somebody messaging me about my salad. They're like, when are you going to make that nice pepper jack avocado salad that you make? Honey, chill. That salad is good. So we're going to have some updates here shortly on that. I'm still trying to, I went to physio yesterday, still trying to get this left foot kind of sorted out. And then it occurred to me, as usual, that I'm probably using that as an unnecessary excuse. We love an excuse, don't we? An excuse why you can't raise your children properly, why you can't be a good spouse, why you can't be a good parent, why you can't be a good employee or an employer. Child, human beings are just full of excuses left, right, and center. Maybe that's just our nature. I don't know. But I was looking at I think it was on Facebook, a video for a guy, I just followed his page, who does chair exercises. So in other words, I don't have to be as fit and fiddle as I think to jump up and run a marathon to get my heart pumping and to get some exercise. I could literally sit in a chair and do exercises that will still be heart healthy and will help burn some fat. So it's time that we do away with excuses. And if you guys saw my home gym, you would really be like, Sandy, you got to do better than this, honey child. You got to step up. You really got to step up because I literally have everything in the gym that I could possibly need. One day I'm gonna take the show over in the gym because I can add a second camera and I'm gonna walk over there and I'm gonna show you guys the gym equipment I have. And then on the door, I have this little thing. It says like gym, whatever. And up at the top, it says no excuses. It's been there for years. And let me tell you all the joke now. I have yet to remove, because when you stick the lettering on the doors or whatever on the walls, there's like a plastic covering over it that you're supposed to take off. I have yet to remove that no excuses part of it because I'm full of excuses. And I'm very, very aware that I'm full of excuses. But I think now, to reach my 50 by 50 goal, because I can't be sitting here preaching to the choir and then y'all be like, Sandy, just full of talk, honey child, because she can't even do it. She can't even get in the damn gym and she got a gym at home. Most of us don't even have a gym. I can hear it from now. So I'm like, I cannot disappoint myself, most importantly, and my people. And when you have a 6-year-old and you're an older mom and your daughter says things to you, it really makes you think. A couple days ago, I don't know what, sometimes this child says things that is like, she's kind of like an old lady, like she's more mature beyond her years in some ways. And she'll say to me, oh, Mom, I don't want you to die. And I was like, well, I don't want to die either. What do you mean you don't want me to die? I'm not in the dying business either. What's going on? And she's like, I'm just worried that you're going to leave me. I think this is an only child thing. And I said to her, well, everybody dies. That's the cold, hard truth in life. Everybody will die at some point. So at some point, we will die and leave you probably. But, we hope that that's no time soon. And that, we're going to be here a really long time for you and try to give you a good foundation in life so that you're not going to be alone. She seems to feel lonely a lot of times being an only child. And she really, does appear to like company. So that's a little bit sad when she said that to me. And then it got me to thinking about what am I doing really to ensure that I am actually going to live a long and fruitful life. We've got longevity in the family, sort of, but we also have people in the family who've had cancers and who died prematurely and stuff like that. And the excess weight is, really, really bad for you because it contributes to so many illnesses. So, and the thing about it is we have the best of times ever. We have the knowledge base that we need. We've got access to information like we never have before. So all of us can go and watch a Google video and exercise. And, if you have money or if you don't have money, you can get access to exercise content. You can walk in a relatively safe environment. Nobody's going to, hopefully, kidnap you off the streets. We really do have a lot of benefits in 2023 that maybe we didn't have 50, 60 years ago or whatever. Like, we know what foods are healthier for us. We know, as the good doctor said yesterday, that moderation really is the best way to do it. You don't have to give up everything that you love, but if you tweak it and give up some of the things that you're eating too much of that are bad for you, you can really make some lifestyle changes. So is my diet horrible? No. Does it need improvement? Yes. It needs a lot of improvement. I try to start out my morning, y'all know, here in the studio with water and tea, and yet I struggle to drink water. I don't know what it is about water, honey chill. I eat more ice probably than I drink water, which is the same thing, but I'm just saying, I really have got a difficult relationship with water. When I drank the most water ever was after Hurricane Ivan. I was so thirsty. I guess because it was probably in short supply. I was just like craving water like nobody's business. So, I'm trying to do better with the water intake and, trying to eat breakfast. I got it lined up. Miss Stacy's supposed to be making me oatmeal every morning, although sometimes I get a little bored with the oatmeal. I haven't had my overnight oats in a while, so I might link those up next week. I kind of mix it up a little bit so I don't get too bored. But yeah, I got to get moving now. I'm tired of the excuses. And so I think it was who was that mentioned the 50 by 50. That was, I'm seeing his name in my eye and I'm seeing his Facebook profile. I'm still not pulling up the name, but anyway, begins with an A. It'll come to me. So when he said the other day, how's the 50 by 50 going? I was like, it needs to start going. That's what needs to happen. So, Alejandra says, yes, we love beneficial information. And, there's so much of it now. We can talk about the misinformation that's out there as it relates even to weight loss and so on. So let's just get on it, right? I took down your names for the 50 by 50 plan. And, now we have to try to organize ourselves a little bit and just get it done. Enough excuses. Miss Vernita, good morning. Irvelyn, hello. So good to see you. Someone said to put lemon in your water. Yes, or people, that's supposed to make it taste better. Oh, Lord. It's not really a taste thing for me even, because water to me doesn't really have a taste, although I guess it kind of does. It's just, let me take a sip of water and tell you what I really think. Yeah, doesn't have a taste. So I don't know if water is going to really make me all that excited about it, but I just need to keep it to my lips and start drinking it, honey chill. Morning, Stephen. He said he is front and center in class this morning. How many of y'all used to be the kid that sat in the front of the class? That was always me, because half the time I couldn't see what was on the board. I was like, what is that? What's that word? Especially in high school. I'm like, what does it say? And then I found that sitting in the front, there was less distractions. Like if people were misbehaving, you didn't get distracted by that. But legitimately, there were a couple of years when I sat in the front because I didn't realize how bad my eyesight was actually getting. And I couldn't see the board. So I would scoot up front and be like, The day I put on glasses, I'll never forget it. I told my aunt, I'm like, okay, I think I really need glasses. My aunt was old fashioned. What can I tell you? Sometimes she missed the mark entirely. We talk about good parenting here on this show, and I think she did the best with what she had. And again, we have to understand that our parents and grandparents and those before us didn't have all the resources that we had at our fingertips. And it's so funny because sometimes now those older heads, they're like, oh, you guys just rely on Google. You're like Google parents or whatever. You think you know everything. And so they're killing us because you have too much access to information. Well, their information was kind of passed down like, oh, give the baby this in the water. And some of it was good and some of it was actually detrimental to children. And it wasn't healthy to give baby cereal in their milk when they're still a baby. And yet there are people around the world who will still tell you that that's what their parents did with them. And despite physicians telling you not to do that and not to give your baby any solid foods actually before like 6 months, because babies who get solid foods before 6 months are more likely to be obese children. Y'all don't know this, but they're more likely to turn out to be obese adults and have a weight problem because, you know, the baby's not supposed to get that. I don't give the baby water. And then old people are like, nope, not nothing wrong with giving the baby water, honey child. I gave mine water and then I kill him. And so I'm always like, that's interesting that that has been the litmus test. Like if it didn't kill you, then let's do it. Let's continue to do it. And there could be good scientific reasons why you don't continue certain behaviors that you've learned, even as parents. We're going to talk about more of that here in a second. And so now there's a backlash. Like these parents are like, you know, don't put the baby on its back. Don't put it in its stomach. Like there's good evidence as to how you want to put a baby in the crib to decrease SIDS and these sorts of things. But you know, them old people, they're like, you're becoming a Google parent. Don't care about that. Don't look at it. I was like, oh my God. I had the same thing when I had my daughter and I told people, listen, my child, my rules. So if you're coming to help me for a couple months with the baby, I appreciate the help, but you're going to follow my rules or it's going to be hands off, you know, because let's put this in formula. I'm like, no, we're going to follow it. I have done enough research because this is my only one. I have researched myself out the wazoo. And you're going to do what I believe should be done with my child. And I'm happy to hear your stories of what you did with your 4 children. And thank God, I guess none of them died. But still, you know, I'm going to go with what the experts have to say on this. Sometimes, honey child, it causes a little bit of fraction with these old people, you know, could they be like, oh, you don't want to listen to me. You just want to listen to Dr. Google. And I'm like, well, I'm not really listening to Dr. Google, but, you know, there's good research and evidence that says X, Y, Z. And so that's what it is. I have learned that babies are very, very resilient. It's probably a lot harder to kill a child than you think in some ways, right? They seem to be, the human race as a whole seems to be incredibly resilient. But we still manage to kill children, child. Don't get me wrong. So, you know, I think that from one generation to the next, the idea should be that we are actually learning and we're picking up on how to be better parents and how to be better individuals. But I think that there's a lot to be desired. We still got a long ways to go, honey child. That's what I'm telling you. You know, it's a journey. And nobody, I say that there's all this information out there, but I also understand that there isn't exactly a manual on how to raise children. Sort of, but not exactly. I mean, I got parenting books and stuff. And, you know, the first book I actually bought is how to ensure that my dog at the time, Coco, and the baby were going to get along and that there weren't going to be any issues. Turns out I never needed that book because Coco was just like the perfect dog. She was such a good dog with Gianna. I mean, the first day we brought her home, Coco was like sniffing at the crib. What is this little thing? What's this all about? And she just took to that baby like you would not believe, went and slept underneath the crib. And she was just following that baby everywhere that baby went. If I got up and moved the baby somewhere else, here comes Coco. She's going to lie down right there. And she was just the sweetest little dog and, you know, protective, but not crazy about the situation. And so I got to tell you that because there's no manual with parenting, you know, a lot of times I think it's a great idea for us to sit down and share stories with each other. We can, you know, talk about what works maybe and what doesn't work. There's an interesting video that I saw. I'm going to see if I can find it here, where this lady was asking about like, what's the formula for raising kids? Like, how is it that you can have a house that has, say, 3 kids, and all 3 kids come out differently. And the man had a very, very interesting perspective on this. And he said, I don't know if I saved that one or not. Let me have a look and see. But he said, that at the end of the day, you say, okay, these children grew up in the same home. How is it possible that they can be so different from one another? And he said, you know what? It's not that difficult to understand, because what actually ends up happening is that children are different for a lot of different reasons. Your birth order makes a difference in your life. So were you, baby number 1, where you had your parents' attention all that time, but at the same time, although you had their attention, you may have also, I'm going to try to see if I can find that link. Oh yeah, that's not the one. Okay. But you also may have had younger parents, right? Who were inexperienced and who, there were certain things that they just didn't know and that they struggled. Oh yes, here it is. I'm going to let you guys listen to this, because this is super interesting about why, even within the context of a singular family, how children can be so different than one another. And I thought about this, and I think there's a lot of good points that this expert makes. And then I'm going to show you guys a little funny video that kind of proves the point of exactly what it is that he says in this. So, it's a singular journey in the sense that every child is different, every parent is different, every circumstance is potentially different. My home might be different than yours, although we're both growing up as Caymanians and kind of, middle-class families. Who you introduce into your family, I think is let's see here. Who you introduce into your family can be really different. Like if you've got, one parent that's actually, from a different culture, all these things matter, because, we talk about as a community how culture makes a difference, right, in our community, but culture makes a difference in our families as well. And I've been a person who's always been extremely cognizant of this. And, I was married to an American. And so I we never had any kids, but I was very much aware of how the dynamics of our household was different because of that very American influence. Now I'm married to a Jamaican. My husband's a little bit different, I think, than maybe the average Jamaican. This is my perception only, because he's not as Jamaican. I say this and it sounds so weird, but he's not like, some Jamaicans. Listen, I tell people, I said, I think this is so interesting. And in some ways, maybe that's what I found attractive about him, is that he wasn't really like an extreme in a way, but he's not the Jamaican that has to go to Jamaica every single month. Some Jamaicans, like, listen, they're living in Cayman, but they really can't live without Jamaica. Every minute they are jumping on the plane and they got to run to Jamaica. Oh my God, I got to go home. It's like, where's your home? You've got a family here and you're establishing yourself here. Is Cayman your home, or is Jamaica still your home? I get it. You want a Jamaican, you can't take that away from you. But, every single day they're going to have a Jamaican meal. Like they're not, listen, their life is not going to change that much just because they're in Cayman. If they were into the dance hall scene in Jamaica and that's what they did and whatever, when they come Cayman, it's the same set of friends. It's the same company. It's all of that. My husband is a little bit more diverse, in the sense that, he's got diverse friends. Yes, his best friend is Jamaican and he's got his Jamaican friends, and, but he's also got friends from Cayman, and he's also got friends that are Hispanic and from all over the place. Like he really is a bit more well-rounded, if I could say, and not as ingrained in his culture. Now, obviously, when we go back to Jamaica, you see a bit more of that comes out. We went to the, I forget which beach in Portland we went to. Oh Lord, what the heck was the beach called? Wilford Beach or Williford Beach or something. And you got to see a bit more of how Jamaicans will spend a traditional Sunday. They'll cook out. I've got some video footage for you guys, by the way, how they were cooking the fish and how they had, his brother was promising me some crabs, and child, these were the biggest crabs that I saw in my life. And when you crack them open, nothing in there. I was like, where's the crab meat? Shall I not taste the crab all yet? This trip in Jamaica? Oh no, I still waiting on a crab. And you know what you guys don't know about me is I like shellfish. I like crab and lobster, but I don't actually like to see it. So there's nothing uglier than an actual lobster to me. I mean, I can understand why people call them the cockroaches of the sea. And crabs are ugly with their little oogly eyes and little claws and whatever. So I don't necessarily like to touch them as such when they're in their shell. I'd be begging people to do it for me. And so there was a guy there who was trying to get me some crab meat. Child, he's still looking for crab meat. He was like, I'm sorry, but there's no crab meat in these crabs. And I said, that's all right. He tried. There was some lobster, so I did have some lobster tail and stuff like that. But you know, you get to see the culture a little bit more, and the vibe was nice and whatever. But at the end of the day, my point really is that everybody brings a certain parenting style to the table. And so you have to be aware that if you're striving for a particular parenting style in your life and your spouse comes from a particular influence, that will impact your household and that will impact your children. No, this wasn't Hillshire Beach. This was Winifred Beach or something it's called. It's all the way in Portland. Child, it was a long drive. But anyway, so yeah, so I was, you know, and I make observations about people and their communication methods. So it's really interesting how people communicate or not as families. And a lot of us, let us be very honest, we have picked up who we are. We are a product of our environment. We're a product of our household. And you can change that narrative. This is the thing that I want to say to all of you is that I'm going to share a couple videos with you guys. You can change that narrative. You don't have to be, you know, your parents. You can be something different, right? And in fact, in my mind, every single generation should be trying to improve upon, you know, what they were or what their parents were, I should say, and not really get stuck in that situation. So if your parents were not the best at communicating, there's absolutely nothing that is stopping you from being better at it. You know, take that parenting course if you know that this is something that, or that communication course, if you know that this is something that you are going to be struggling with. You have to be open to change, first of all. You have to be open to admitting that maybe your situation wasn't a perfect situation. And so, you know, you've just got to open your heart and most importantly, your mind to the fact that you can do things differently and the outcome will actually be different. So even as I make observations, and I tell you guys, my husband's very private, so I'm not going to get into too many details, but I see his family has a certain communication style. And, you know, I see lots of room for improvement. Let me put it that way. In traditional Caribbean families, I think this is very, very true. Sometimes we don't really, you know, especially with children, we tell children, oh, you're to be seen and not heard. And I absolutely hate when people say that to children. I think that it's wrong on so many levels. And they are creating children into potential victims without ever recognizing that that is actually the case. Right? Really, really sad. But there's a lot of improvement. So I talk about my aunt a lot. And I know my aunt wasn't perfect. She made a lot of mistakes. I think that her heart was in the right place and she was always trying to do the right thing. And a lot of parents in this day and age, I don't know that they're trying at all. You know, she tried to do the right thing. She made mistakes. Listen, it's part of the parenting process, you know, and as I reflect on even my journey with her and some of the ups and downs that we had, because I, as a child, had a very strong personality. When y'all talk about some of these children are hard to, you know, deal with, I sympathize with you because I may have been one of those children myself. Right. And a lot of it had to do with the lack of discipline that existed in my early years. So that's why when I tell you that, my God, you've got to bend the tree and mold the situation from the earliest possible stage. Once again, I speak from a place of absolute understanding because that kid is me. That's me. I know what I'm talking about from experience. And when you have a child that grows up, I don't want to get emotional about the situation today, but when you have a child that grows up, where they're being dragged up and they've got older siblings that are kind of the ones raising them, but they're only a couple years older than them, and they don't have a clue because they're not meant to be parents. They're, preteens or teenagers or whatever. Your siblings are not supposed to be the ones who raise you. And so there is a lot of things that we get wrong. Yeah. And it's easy to reflect sometimes in our lives and to say, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. Right. I'm not going to be that parent. I'm not going to do that. And yet we end up, just because of the psychology of human beings, we end up being and doing the exact same thing that we said we would never do. Isn't that ironic? Oh, I'm not going to be my mom. I'm not going to parent like how she did. I'm not going to abuse my kids. I'm not going to abandon them. No. And then we end up doing the exact same thing. You know why? Because ultimately, we are all a product of our own environment. And it is hard to break free of behavioral examples that have been set for you. It's really, really hard. When that chaos in your life is all that you know, y'all don't have to tell me the difficulty it is to even change and understand that that chaos, that dysfunctional environment that you grew up in, isn't the norm, or it shouldn't be the norm. It isn't right. And there's hope for you to be something different. It's difficult once you've lived it. And it takes a lot. So I share with you how my aunt was extremely strict. Oh my God. She was strict and extreme that I don't think any parent should be, but I'll tell you why I accept that she did what she had to do is because, number one, I was somebody else's child. I was not her child. So I think she always felt a sense of like responsibility in a way, like I don't want anything to ever happen to her on my watch. I'm taking on this responsibility of helping to raise my brother's child. And so the responsibility is even greater than perhaps my own child. And, she also grew up in a time when that's just how the strictness was just what it was, A lot of her life struggles, so she was a bit of a hypochondriac. She was fearful of living life. A lot of that stuff was ultimately projected on me. So there's a lot of things that as a child that I wanted to be able to do, like normal kid things. And she said, no, you can't do that. And it was out of fear. But the fear came from, she was fearful in her own life. And as I came into adulthood, I really recognized it because she was someone who never lived her full potential, right? She grew up with her parent. She lived with her mother was Caymanian, so her mom died when she was young. So she grew up with her dad, who happened to have been Jamaican, and his sister, which was her aunt. They were the ones who pretty much raised her from when she was a teenager, and she worked in the family business. They had a dry cleaners business in Tampa for a number of years. And then the rest of the time, she met someone, had a child, in those days out of wedlock, which was really, really frowned upon. And, she never made that mistake again. And she never got married. She never had any relationship. She then dedicated her life to the rearing of her son. And then she had a cousin who ended up moving to, he lived in Canada for a while. I just called him my uncle to not complicate my life, but technically he's not a family relative. So when you hear me talk about my uncle, that was actually her cousin, but he had been married. He lived in Canada, originally from Jamaica again. But he ended up moving to Florida, working in the family business. And they just kind of lived in this communal household sort of thing. She never lived on her own. Let me explain this to you all, right? She grew up in a time and lived in an era where she never essentially moved out of her parents' house. She never lived on her own. So to her, that was like a foreign concept. And I imagine it probably wasn't even acceptable because my cousin, who's 10 years older than me, William, ended up doing the exact same thing. Never moved out from his parental home. And so here I come at the age of just turned, 9 years old. I already have a personality by the time I'm 9. I'm like, hold on now, you're not gonna be controlling me, lady. I don't even know who you are. There were so many complex elements to the situation that I was being put into. But I was my own person already, and I had my own ideas. Even if as a 9-year-old, they might not have always been right, And I was like, who in their right mind stays home forever? That was what I was thinking already. I'm like, that's not gonna be me. But it was a difficult situation at best, and I had to forge my own way. And so when I turned 18, I said, okay, I'm going out on my own. I got to live my life. I've got to be my own person. I've got to experience this big world. I can't live in the shadows of your fears. They have unfortunately, even at 18, held me back long enough. I wouldn't have gone probably to college in state if it wasn't for the type of personality that she had. I would have ventured out more, but I ended up staying in Tampa, going to university, USF, because she just wasn't ready to let me go. It's like other kids, I was in a lot of AP and honor classes. These kids are like, yes, we're ready to get out there. And thank God for that exposure, even in school. They were like, we're ready to get out there. I'm going this university, I'm going that university. And I saw them spreading their wings. And my poor little wings were still, clipped and very much to my body. And so I had to make one of the most difficult decisions in my life. And when I tell you, it makes me emotional because I know that although I did it for all the right reasons, for my own personal development, for my own mental sanity, when I moved out from living with my aunt, it was something that she took personal. It really hurt her, and that was never my intent. My intent was just to try to live my own life. And it meant in that moment that I said, hey, I'm moving out. I actually had to plan the whole thing, y'all. It was crazy. It's almost as though I had been kidnapped and I was planning my escape route out of that environment. That's how controlling and totally crazy the situation was. And when I made my move, had the people that were going to help me get out of the situation. Yeah. Even as I stood there trying to physically leave, she was attempting to stop me. And, she just couldn't understand that what she was wanting me to do, which was stay home forever, just isn't normal. And that's not what people are supposed to do. How do you ever learn as a kid going into adulthood to be a person if I'm living with you my entire life? Like it logically didn't make any sense, but for her, she couldn't understand why you'd want to leave her. And so, in this program before, I've been honest, very honest with you guys about, the sense of abandonment that we feel when we don't grow up with our primary parent. So sometimes she would play, and I don't ever think she did it intentionally, but as parents, we've got to be very, very careful the things that we say and we do to our kids, because she would kind of play these emotional games with me. And I don't think that she really recognized what she was doing. So there was a lot of guilt tripping involved, right? So she would say, if you leave me, that means that you don't love me. Yeah. And I was like, what? Woman, this isn't about you. This is about me. Why am I worried about you as an adult in your life? And, what about me? I'm just starting out. Do I not have the right to try to live my own life? Like, it was just crazy how she thought of things. So, even as a 17 or 18-year-old, when you have an adult that you identify as a parent telling you that you are abandoning them, when you yourself grew up as a child with abandonment issues, right? And feelings of abandonment. And then you have someone flip that on you. This is gaslighting. Listen, this is textbook gaslighting, narcissism. I recognize it when I see it because I have experienced it in my own life. And so when the psychological warfare, she wasn't winning that with me. And I said, no, I've got to go out there and forge my own way. She came out with everything in the book. Oh, you just want to leave because now you want a boyfriend and this is all about sex and you want man and this and that. I was like, what? That was like the farthest thing from my mind. But I'm like, no, but you know what? That's probably part of growing up too, is actually getting a man. I mean, is there a problem here? You know, all of these things she would just like throw at me. And I remember in the moment I was outside and I was like, okay, like I gotta go. I'd packed a little bag of stuff. She took everything that I'd packed. She actually took it back. And she says to me, you can't have these things. Because she was very, when it came to material things, I always felt like her focus was a lot on that. And it's one of the reasons why my personality as an individual is I will never be beholden to material things. I like nice things. And it actually has been detrimental in a way because I don't attach any value to things, even when they do have value, you know, in the sense that I'm not going to let that control me. I'm not going to let money control me. I've had money in life. I've not had money in life. And it just doesn't, that's not the most important thing. Is your life more comfortable with money? Yes, without a doubt. But it's not the end all and be all. So we had a standoff. And there she is telling me that in the last sort of moments, really, what she tried to do is try to tell me I couldn't leave because I would leave with nothing. And I said, okay, then I leave with nothing. You think I'm leaving with nothing. Listen to me very, very carefully. This is what I said to her. You think I'm leaving with nothing. When in fact, I'm leaving with the most important thing in the world, which is my freedom. You've done your part. You need to let me go. This isn't about you anymore. I have got to go. And, you know, she just wasn't getting it. And in life, I've accepted that people from a certain generation and just people in life, sometimes they don't always understand what you're saying. They don't understand where you're coming from, what your experiences have been, because those are very unique to you. And you just have to step forward in what you know. It's a gamble, it's a chance, but what is life, you know? And so she said, you can't take these things. Now, I'll never forget because it was already coming into autumn. The weather was getting chilly. And so I had nothing. And, you know, I didn't even have I think at the time I was working at the school newspaper already because she'd be clocking me when I come home. Well, why were you late? And I was like, well, I was doing an interview for the paper and it went over by 10 minutes. You know, back in those days, we didn't have mobile phones or anything. So I couldn't call and say, I'm going to be catching the next bus. But she was so controlling. She controlled every aspect of my life, what I ate, what I did, when I slept, I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I knew that this isn't probably how normal people live. And I need to get the hell out of Dodge. And I'll never forget when my cousin William, he'd actually gotten a girl pregnant, honey child, because when he was supposed to be at the library studying, well, I don't know what kind of class that was, but he was out with some girl and formed this relationship and he ended up having a baby. So one day I was driving my aunt from the grocery store and I came home and there's William sitting on the sofa with this baby. And this is how we get introduced to the fact that he now has a child. And I was like, yeah, that's why you find condoms in the gym bag. I said, the man is old enough though. I mean, if he wants to have a child, that's his business. And so I remember looking at that child thinking, oh God, now I'm going to have to be helping out with this child, babysitting. I'm like, no. I need to take control of my life. I need to get the hell out of here. And when I finally made the decision, made my plan, she's sitting there. You can't take anything with you. And there was like a couple minutes of silence. And then I said, okay, I'm going to leave. The cops were calling everything. Like she literally had a mental breakdown when I left. I tell you, I'm not exaggerating or overusing that term. She did. And I said to her, I said, okay. And I turned to walk away and she's like, what? You can't leave without a jacket or without this or without clothes? And I said, but you just told me that you bought all of these things and this is how you were going to try to control me in life. And this is one of the reasons to this day I hate controlling people. And I have never been in a relationship where a man has controlled me because I grew up with a control freak. I said that mistake, I can tell you what, it's not going to be saying It's not going to happen. This will never happen. And the first time I get any whiff of someone being a control freak in a relationship, even friends, you and I will part ways quicker than I don't know what. Than Moses parted the river. Who was it? Was it Moses that parted the river? They're not gonna work for me, honey child. Because again, that was something that I experienced firsthand. I know the detrimental effects of it. So I said, okay, no problem. Those are just material things. I'll go to the, where's the place that you can go and pick up stuff? The Salvation Army and pick up a jacket or whatever. I'm like, keep it. If that's going to make you happy in life to know that you have my stuff, keep it. You want to hear the crazy part about this? Lady's like, no, you can't leave. So she gave me one jacket and a few pieces of clothing. I left. I told you guys that I did a number of odd jobs. I worked, and this again is, when I talk to young people, oh, they can't find work and all these struggles. Listen, I understand your struggles. And yet, when you're in it, and most of you are not struggling where you don't know where your next meal is coming from, but I have been there. When you're in that situation, you do not have to steal from people. You don't have to rob anybody. You don't have to harm anybody to make your way. I moved in with these people. They were country bumpkins. That was the best way to describe them. In an area of Tampa that back then was very underdeveloped. It was more like, I think it's a little bit closer to where New Tampa is now, but back then it was country. Kevin would be able to help me out here because it's close to where he actually lives. What was it? It has a different, it's not even considered part of Tampa proper. Begins with an L. Anyway, it might come to me, but anyway, Lutz, Florida, whatever. Really, really country. And here I am going with this family. I don't know if they're mass murderers or really anything about them, but they were willing to give me a room in exchange for me like helping out around the house, trying to keep the house clean, whatever. Basically, I became a friggin' helper in university. I'm a university kid, and I'm going to move into these white people's house who I don't know nothing about, and I'm going to become their helper. But I knew it was only a temporary situation. It wasn't going to be my life story, right? And it allowed me to, at least for a couple months, because I had my resident assistant job lined up, but that wasn't starting until a particular date. So I was in between, I had to do what I had to do. For a month or two, I actually stayed in a dorm room with a friend. And because it was during the summer break, nobody kind of noticed that I was there because they were there doing summer classes. And I stayed in their dorm room. And I actually had one of their dorm mates steal my high school ring. That's how I lost my high school ring, because they stole it. Because it didn't look like a high school ring. I had a very different design with my birthstone or whatever. And they stole it, not realizing that it was actually a high school ring and it had my year and my high school, but it just looked so different that they probably didn't recognize it till after they stole it. These were the things that I had to endure. You sacrifice today and you still hold your head high, young people, because tomorrow will be better. Yeah. I got bitten up by fleas because these white people were kind of nasty and how they were living. And I'm trying to clean their house. They were smokers, and y'all know I'm allergic to cigarette smoke and I can't stand cigarette smoke. I would do my little cleaning and lock up in my room, lock the door at night, honey chill, and just pray that I would be safe enough to get out of there in a couple months' time and move into my dorm situation. So when y'all talk about, oh, life is hard and this and that, I understand you, not from a theoretical perspective. I understand you from a real world life perspective. I have been there. I understand. Yeah. So the dysfunctionality that I grew up in here was different than my aunt. She had a much more structured environment. It allowed me to focus and excel in school because of my own discipline And this is when I recognize that I can do this. I can be different. I can change the mold of my life. And then it is my responsibility to give my own child a good foundation so that she can go out there and be her own person and live her own life. But it doesn't come easy. And not every single one of us grew up with a silver spoon in our mouth. Some of us barely had a spoon, you know? And it's so funny because you guys know I have a lot of guilt that, oh my gosh, my other siblings, I've got 2 full sisters, they could have had this opportunity. But, things happen, they say, for a reason. I don't really know. But I think to myself that nobody knows my journey but me. And nobody knows your journey but you. We share sort of collective elements of our life story. And we have to be in a position to help one another. Right? And I say that parenting doesn't come with a manual. If you're damaged yourself, damaged people are going to raise damaged people in 99.999999% of the times. If you don't get help, if you don't work through what your issues are. And so even as young adults, you get into relationships of your own, you might notice that you have certain tendencies. And lo and behold, guess what? The very thing I said, oh, I'll never get in a relationship with a controlling person, I recognize in myself that I had picked up that personality trait. I was the one who was the control freak. I was the one who was the control person. And I was looking to control other people and control situations. Even today, I know that that's a tendency that I have, and I have to be very careful with that. Yes, I walk in, I'm like, okay, listen here now. This place not working. We're going to shape up, ship out. This is what we're going to do. My brain works a particular way. It's formulating a plan. Here's the plan. Let's just get it done. And in certain situations that might work, and that's okay. And then in other situations, hello, Miss Sandy, you need to step back because you are controlling people. You're trying to control people and you cannot do that. I get it and I understand and I know exactly where it comes from. Right? And so sometimes you need to let go. Allison Hilago, thank you so much. I read your comment yesterday on the post about these young people, which we're going to get into here in a second with the Burger King incident. We've identified who they are, by the way. We know exactly who they are. Allison is a very compassionate person. I want to give Allison a big shout out. And she's an Anglin. Is it Anglin? Her people would be Captain Marvin and them. Ebanks, but I think maybe Anglin as well. And she was talking about how maybe we should give these parents the benefit of the doubt that they don't know any better. And I paused and I reflected on what she said, because I just said to you that we are a product of our environment. We become what our parents were in most instances, whether we want to or not. And it takes a level of consciousness to break out of that. And yet we also have available to us, caller, I'm coming to you, more resources than we have ever had in human time, right? There are more parenting books in the world, and nobody has an excuse why you can't get access to it. You got Amazon that has billions of books. You can just go on Amazon.com. You've got Kindle books. If you can't even read, you can listen to a book. You've got YouTube videos on parenting. There's so much that you can access. And so even though I reflected on Allison's point, she's a mom as well. She's a little family of her own. I reflected on her point as having some degree of validity. Yes, these parents don't know what they're doing because their parents before them did a shitty job, and their parents before them did a poor job, and their parents before, this is the problem. It is a multi-generational problem. But for us to break free of this, Number one, we need to be honest. We need to say, good morning. My name is Sandra Hill, formerly Sandra Solomon, and I came from a dysfunctional family. Family members get upset. Well, why are you talking your family business? And you telling people that, I'm like, is it the truth? Yeah, but then I don't want to hear nothing after that. If it is the truth, acknowledge your situation, because that's the first step. You got a drug problem, you first have to acknowledge it. You got a food addiction problem, you first have to acknowledge it. Once you are honest and you acknowledge the situation, then we can talk about what changes can I make. Small changes equal big changes. Every day I need to do this. I need to rewire the way in which my brain has been programmed. It's hard, but it is not impossible. So if we're aiming for better communities, the premier says communities build country. He needs to step back one more step and talk about families, because we cannot build communities and then build a country if our families are dysfunctional and they're all in a shithole. And that's happening way too often in this country. We need to help our families. We need to help children. Anya says there's also the Family Resource Center. There are resources available to you. Now, some of these resources on island, I think they do a horrible job of letting people know what's available. When they're having a parenting course, why don't we know? Every single day should be shouting it from the mountaintops. They should be doing PSAs all over the radio. They should, yes, I see sometimes they put on social media, but if you don't follow the Family Resource Center, you probably wouldn't even see that post. We have got to do more to get the messaging out there. These are the available resources. If you're an addict, this is the help that's available to you. What's the Alcoholic Anonymous? I don't ever hear or see anything about Alcoholic Anonymous. They're truly anonymous, honey child. Because you don't hear nothing about them. Now, I get it. Or, well, we have patient confidence. That's not what I'm talking about. When was the last time you saw Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't know who runs it or what they do exactly. But when was the last time you ever heard a PSA from them? Come out to our meetings. It's on such and such a date. You don't see it or hear it anywhere. So if these resources are available, even mental health, why are they not making it more, open to the public? This is what we offer. This is how you can get help. These are the resources. Parents, you don't have to struggle alone. Denny, good morning.
Buenos dias.
How are you?
Pretty good. You know what I want you to let go of?
What's that?
The recipe for that salad you were talking about earlier. It sounded good?
Yes. Have you had it?
No,
Oh,
actually no.
Okay.
But it did sound good.
Oh my goodness.
I agree with the things I hear you talking about there. The struggles, the verse that comes to mind is that the sins of the parents are visited on the third and fourth generation. And that doesn't actually mean that God holds the children responsible for the sins of the parents. What it means is that the children learn from parents, whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
And it does take conscious effort. And if you're going to break the cycle, which you can, you have to first of all be conscious, and then you have to have the strength, and then you need to have support. And this is where I like the name of your show, The Cold Hard Truth. Because imagine if you had support in your life that didn't tell you the truth or didn't tell you things in a way that allowed you to comprehend it because they were too concerned about how you might feel about how they expressed it to you. Imagine if your doctor didn't tell you what they really needed to tell you because they were too politically correct. And what actually happened is you ended up having miscommunication as a result of that. So you go away thinking one thing and no, that's not what I said. Well, maybe you should say it more plainly,
Hmm.
right? Um, but 50 by 50.
Hmm.
So you were talking about some people eating food to live and some live to eat. Do you live to eat or you eat to live?
For me personally,
Yes.
I think it's a little bit of both. It's
What's
I don't feel like I'm an extreme in either direction, but I do enjoy food. And I don't think
what is
there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but there's some better
well, what's the
decisions.
purpose? Right, right. I agree with that. There's what's the purpose of eating food?
Well, to give your body some nutrients and stay healthy. It's a source of energy for sure. And for me, it's also, a
And what's the
way
purpose of
to,
that gym that you have in your house?
well, child, right now, Dana's serving no purpose.
No, no, but conceptually,
Oh,
what's the
concept.
purpose?
Yes, it was put. It was put there to allow me to get some physical exercise. Not really
And
so much to lose weight, but to just do things like have a little bit more stamina, to improve muscle mass and those types of things.
I like your answers because losing weight is actually something you do in your kitchen.
Yes.
Being healthy is what you do in your gym.
Hmm.
All right. So the calories that you burn from exercising isn't going to be enough to really cause you to lose the kind of weight that you need to lose in a reasonable amount of time.
Hmm.
The real weight loss is controlled by what you eat. But I remember watching a video of a guy, I think it was at the University of California or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Hmm.
But he was also talking about um he was on the subject of sugar, but
Hmm.
he was talking about this one person that he knew, and she wasn't able to lose weight no matter how she dieted. No, what she could eat what you would consider the best in the world, and she still couldn't lose weight.
Mm.
And according to him, um, that is because y- hormone balances affects your ability to lose weight.
Hmm.
And so the question is, are you doing things in your life that disrupt the normal activities of hormones in your body?
Hmm.
And that, I think, is an important element for us to consider. And what brings it to mind is there's some new uh, trains of thought in research about what is disrupting hormones,
Hmm.
and it's called phthalates, and it's in everything, all of the plastics in your house. It's in foods, it's in your lotions, soaps, shampoos, deodorants, all over the place.
Hmm.
And when I saw that video of him, but basically what he said was that they suspected that a certain hormone, I don't remember the name of it right now, was preventing this woman from losing weight. And so what they did was they gave her a hormone therapy to counter what they thought was the imbalance.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, she lost weight.
Mm.
So that's why I believe don't have any real solid research to back up what I'm about to say, but I know people who they say they eat really well. To me, it appears they eat relatively decent. So they should be losing weight, but they're not. They're just the same size and they just can't seem to lose it. And it's probably an element that goes a little bit beyond the kitchen that's taking place. And some people, not saying that's true for everyone, but it's something I'm actually looking into because it's interesting to consider how the environment that we live in might be impacting us in ways that we least expect.
Okay. Leave us
So,
there. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So I look forward to that 50 by 50.
Thank you, Daddy. I appreciate it.
All right, later.
All right, 936 Bobo is the telephone number. Thank you so much. Feel free to call in. It's a journey. Listen, life is a journey. And I must agree with Denny when he talks about the necessity for us to be honest. That's why, sometimes I sit here and, there are people, like I said, who are like, oh my God, you overshare, it's too much. But I also recognize that, in fact, we're all kind of on this journey together and separately. And so some of the things that I share, you guys can relate to. Some of you might not. That might not be your life story. But we have to be honest. That I think that is really, really where it begins. And if we're even honest with the fact that we accept, I'm far from perfect. I'm damaged goods in different ways. I might not be as damaged as some other people, but I'm damaged in my own ways. And maybe I deal with my situation differently. So some people have anxiety. Some people have they suffer from chronic depression. Some people are truly angry in life and they walk around angry and they take it out on a lot of other people around them. And honestly, there have been times in my life where I was an angry adult and I was doing things that was not kind to other people and I have hurt other people. Maybe not in the same way as some people have, like I've never beaten anybody up physically, whatever, but there are things that I've done. Nobody's proud of those moments. The problem becomes when you get stuck in those situations and you don't move past it. Right? And you're the hamster on the hamster wheel and your life just goes in circles. So you've had one failed relationship, one failed marriage. It didn't work. You take your accountability for your part in it. What went wrong? Everything can't always be on the other person. When you accept your responsibility and then you get into another relationship, if you don't make some changes that cause that previous relationship to fail on your part, then you are becoming part of the cycle that we talk about, the cycle of destruction, the cycle of chaos. So you have to acknowledge your part. Like if you're a chronic cheater and you just keep cheating in every relationship and you see the damage that does to people, at some point you've got to decide that either you want the single life where you're not committing to anyone, or you better stop cheating. And maybe you can't. Maybe you're just not a monogamous person. And there are people who are not. There is a whole theory that as human beings, we're not even meant to be in these long-term relationships. Like, oh yeah, I was married for 60 years to one person. And the theory goes, human beings are actually not designed for that kind of life. And in our brains, for different reasons, religious reasons, family reasons, we think that that's the ideal, but maybe it actually isn't. But it comes down to honesty. If the person you're in a relationship with, listen, I'm not a monogamous person. You want to get married to have that piece of paper because that gives you comfort and we can have joint assets and a joint bank account and a house together and it's easier to acquire these things, not a problem. But you have to know that when it comes to the physical side of things and sex, I'm always going to be stepping out. I'm a creature that needs excitement in that way. If your partner is honest, then you decide, is this the person that I want to be with? Is that my ideal relationship? What does that mean for me? They're going to be unavailable emotionally. They're going to be taking time away from the family. If you don't want that, then you go find somebody else. But the problem is our innate ability to be honest at so many levels. Listen to this. This is the video that I was telling you guys about. Have a listen to this.
How could you have, let's say, people who are raised by the same parents in the same way?
Mm-hmm.
One becomes a narcissist and one doesn't.
Because no two kids are raised in the same family. No two children have the same parents. Do you have siblings?
Yes, older and younger.
You weren't raised in the same family. You were never the oldest child, were you? You've never had that experience of being the oldest child. You've had the experience of the middle child, which is often very difficult, by the way, because you no longer, you neither have the respect and authority of the oldest, nor the cuteness and lovability of the youngest. You can't compete with a baby, for cuteness. Not only that, when your parents had you, and when they had your younger siblings perhaps, they might have been in a different stage in their own personal development, or in a different stage of their relationship, or a different economic position. Furthermore, you never had the experience of not having somebody older in the family than you. You never had the experience, at least until your younger sibling came along, of the insult of I was the only one, and all of a sudden I have to share my attention with this young interloper, which is what your oldest sibling had to do. So no two children. Not only that, even more importantly, temperamentally every child is different, and that means they evoke a different part of the parent. So even if the parent loves their kids equally, which is not, I'm not questioning, they will not respond to the child the same way. The child will not evoke the same responses from the parent, one child or the other. So no two kids have the same parents.
Isn't that crazy? No two kids have the same parents, although they're growing up in the same household. Now, let's reflect on how incredibly true that is. When I was doing my last Cayman Voices, by the way, we got another one coming up on Monday, so make sure you tune in. When I was doing that, I was interviewing Mr. John Douglas. And I'll never forget that Mr. Douglas said to me, at the end of the interview, I was asking him what was his sort of biggest success in life. And he said, Sabrina and I forget his son's name. So he's got a pair of kids, a set of children, I should say, with his first wife, older children. And then he's got with his second wife, a younger set, Sabrina and, I can't remember the son's name now, 2 kids. And he's like, they're my greatest joy. And I said, your children are your greatest joy. And he was like, yeah, all of my children. Yeah. But I understood immediately where he was coming from, because he's like, oh, but this set was like so different. And I said to him, which maybe he hadn't really thought of, I said, what was probably different was you. Not so much the children, generations apart, but you were a different man. And he reflected briefly and said, yes, that's right. Because you were no longer the father out at sea. Y'all know we talk about our seafaring heritage, and it's something we are proud of. But do you all also appreciate how difficult that was on families and how that has actually created part of the dysfunctionality that we have now? Because you had a lot of absentee parents from day one, a lot of absentee fathers. They came at Christmas time, and that's when you saw them. Knocked up your mother with another baby and then left. All 6, 7, 8 children later. But he wasn't there, right? Women didn't have the emotional support, even though the times were different. They probably just didn't have it anyway. A man wasn't necessarily there for emotional support. Think about it. But on top of that, he was not physically there. He was sending money home. Now, that's a lot better than what some of these fools in the streets are doing in this day and age, because they're not even supporting their kids. But we have largely grown up accepting, because of economic times, that your fathers would be absent. It was okay. So when he's saying that his greatest achievements are his younger children, and he thinks, oh, the kids are different, I said, no, sir, you were different. All of a sudden, you weren't off to sea. Is that right? And he said, that's true. So now you are present. You're older, right? More middle age. You're more mature. You're more financially stable. You weren't trying to build the first house or whatever. You were in a different space completely. Because he talked about remembering getting up in the middle of the night and helping with changing the diapers. And, playing with, when the baby would, Sean is the son's name. When Sean would wake up in the middle of the night, playing with Sean until he wanted to go back to sleep at all 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So his relationship with the younger set of children is completely different than his older children. It's understandable. And we need to appreciate the implications that it has had in our lives. Mm-hmm. Having an absent parent for whatever reason is not an easy thing. People dealt with it because, he was off to sea, he was sending money back, he was supporting the family. At least there was some sort of a legitimate explanation as to why the father was absent. And then these men were out there having other families. They weren't necessarily getting married elsewhere, but some of them never came back. They went abroad, they saw the world. They got to see the world. They got the exposure. And the women stayed right here in Cayman and only saw the 4 little corners of their neighborhood. It was the men who could talk about being on the high seas and seeing Europe, and they went to Germany and they did this. And I think a lot of the wives who remain married to this seaman, they kind of lived vicariously through them. Like even when you hear them talk about their husband stories and stuff like that. And even the kids, daddy would bring home chocolates and he'd talk about, they never got any of those experiences. Isn't that interesting? They could only tell you what their father shared with them. And of course, he wasn't sharing that he was also seeing other women and getting other women pregnant abroad. Now, when they do, 23andMe and whatever, all of a sudden you got a cousin in Germany, you got a sibling in the UK, and this is how it happened. It was a different time. And yet that has a real world impact on our lives. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Miss Sandra.
How are you, honey?
Not bad. I messaged you this morning, but you didn't reply, so I decided to call.
Okay.
See, I work with Bento, and I was at work last night in Cayman Bay, and I saw a car key on the floor, but I was looking for security, no security in sight. So I have the car key. I can send you the picture that you can probably put it up on Facebook and find out if anybody lose their keys at Cayman Bay last night.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome, dear. So, it's just so interesting how I think his first set of children, I know a few of them are wonderful people, but I have to wonder how different their lives might have been if he was the parent that he was to his younger kids, being more present and that sort of thing. It's very, very interesting. And that's why a lot of men, there's not a lot, but there were some men who the first opportunity they had, where they had a skill that could allow them to remain in the Cayman Islands, like Mr. Sherry's father, Mr. Bodden, Norman Bodden, he talked about, once he could get a job here, he signed up for like the short term. He didn't want to go back to sea. He wasn't in it for the long haul. Even Mr. Dick Arch, again, he's like, I only signed a 1-year contract with the shipping company because I wasn't that man that wanted to be away for so long. Debbie says, good morning, Sandy. You talk about Aunt Lottie so much. Can you show us a picture of her, please? Yes, I can do that. Let me see. I'll show you a couple. All right, so this is her. I don't know how old she would have been here. You know, she's one of those people I never quite knew how old she was until she died. And then I was like, doing the math and kind of going back in time. And this was her and Uncle Willie. And there she is there. So, I mean, obviously she influenced my life a lot, whether it was good or bad. It is what it is. Good morning, Miss Brenda. Alejandro says, KK says that intro is bad. She likes the new intro. Alejandro says that I just missed that comment. Sorry. He says, fake it till you make it was one of his comments. And Sandy, I wish you was my tutorial teacher when I was in school. Let me say something about that, Alejandro, because I don't know. I didn't really go to school in Cayman. So sometimes I speak about the way that schools operate here, not really having a completely full understanding. So I have to admit that limitation. But, you know, when I was in high school, I participated in like teen court and a number of other community programs. I volunteered, went to the nursing home, would sit down and read with old people and, you know, do all sorts of stuff. Community. I think getting your teens and your children involved in community service is extremely important as early as you possibly can. I was a peer counselor. So I worked with other peers who were we got some training, who were having issues and they wanted to talk to somebody. Sometimes they couldn't talk to the adults around them. And so the whole idea behind the peer counseling is they could talk to another peer. And of course, strict confidentiality. But, you know, if someone came to us saying that they felt suicidal, that was something we couldn't keep confidential. We had to disclose that and get them the help that they needed. But a lot of it was just like, you know, I got a boyfriend, I'm feeling this way and that way, and just to have somebody to talk to. Sometimes you, as a teen, you can't talk to your friends because they're judging you. And it was like a judgment-free space. Great program. Like, I would love to see things like this. If they're not in schools, I would love to see them introduced in schools here, because I think that there's a lot of value to having these sorts of programs. But when you talk about your counselors and what's available to you, you know, I also think that there should be a program where adults who have gone through a little bit of something in life can go into school. It's kind of like a speaker series, and they can talk to some of these young people. So we're going to talk about these kids, these Windsor Park kids who thought it was a good idea to throw a live firework in a Burger King restaurant, injuring people. What's going on with these kids? Why are they hanging out at the park smoking all day? Where are the parents? But community also needs to step up. I understand that Windsor Park in particular has lost their community officer. The RCIPS removed her. And for that community, that has been a significant loss, because she was getting the children involved in basketball, redirecting their out of school time, their efforts. You know, they were less idle. They were just sitting in the park smoking ganja all day, or when they're out of school, because most of these kids are actually high school kids. So the MPs for Windsor Park, that would be David White and Barbara Connolly. What programs have they introduced since they've been in office that has contributed to the community? It's fine to give out your little turkeys at Christmas time, but I'm talking about meaningful long-term programs. What have y'all done? You've been in at least 2 terms now, over 8 years, and we can't see anything in 8 years that's meaningful. But the electorate keeps electing you. These same parents don't see how their lives have improved in any way, shape, or form. Election time come around, you're going to give them a couple dollars, you're going to pay a CUC bill, you're going to pay a water bill, but nothing essential. Oh, we cleaned up a park and put down 1 bench. Boy, our expectations are low of these elected officials. So I think a speaker series, even in the schools. The Boys to Men program is doing a lot. Congratulations, by the way, to Pastor Murray, who was nominated for the Queen's Awards, the governor's office. He's one of the people. Last year, they had Anthony Lawson go and speak at their final dinner, and he talked about how he grew up partly in the boys' home, some of the struggles, how he was able to turn it around. Those are the people that we need to tap into, that can go into schools and be part of this speaker series and sit down with our young people and share their stories. Because young people have little to no hope sometimes, because again, what they see in their homes show them, Lord, this is going to be my life. I don't have any hope. When a person has hope, they're less likely to go down the wrong path. When they see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there'll be people along the way who can encourage them and who will help them, especially when they see them doing the right thing, it can make the world of a difference in somebody's life. Come on now. We got to do better. Dean, good morning, says, I was told stress can disrupt one's hormonal functions. Very true. You know what keeps a lot of weight on people too is lack of sleep. And I know that this is actually one of my biggest problems, honey child. I need to get more than 4 or 5 hours. And last night was not a good night. I need to get some sleep. And I feel like I would lose weight so much easier if I would actually sleep at night. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, Miss Sandra, I love the topic this morning with the siblings and parenting. You know, I remember when we was going to school back in like before 2010, we was there was groups of kids that were misfits, and I would be a part of them. Maybe I would consider it in a low term, but I remember we used to love skateboarding, and we used to find that as a expressing way of like I would say expressing our emotions when it come into frustration, because you might get a trick down one day and then we just work it out. And sometimes you might have a friend, like back then I had one friend called his name Newville Cover, and he was like one of the best skaters in the island. And you know, we looked up to him. I used to do filming and stuff because when I came from California, you know, I watched a lot of the professional skaters and I used to love to record them. And you know, like engaging in sport activities is a big part of this island. And I think that when these investors come in and they start interfering with our playgrounds, I would call them, and you know, knocking down these buildings just to make up more space, or they feel like it's not occupied, but they don't really see what the children really want. You know, they don't concern about what the children want. I've noticed when the professional skaters come down, they used to influence the children to get proactive in the skating community, even to go abroad and learn to do different competitions. You know, it gives our competitive skills more constructive mindset instead of fighting, instead of doing drugs. Who can get more high than who can handle the high? All these type of things, alcohol and peer pressure is a big part of it. You know, I don't think that parents engage into peer pressure with the children too often when it comes into who are your friends. You know, I had some bad friends, I had some good friends. The majority of them were good, and you know, stick with the good friends because they actually bring you happiness. And some people, I guess, that because they are brought up with bad parents, that they feel like the bad way is the best. And you know, me as a I'm the only boy and when I was growing up, I have 4 sisters, and I'm the oldest actually. When I was growing up with my sisters, they always used to come to me and ask me, you know, what happened? What happened today? You don't look good. You know, like they see my emotions, and that's why I feel like sisters is a big part of a family as well, and that comes into the aunts as well. And you know, parents don't engage with the children anymore like how they used to. And I think it's because of the work that they have to do. Sometimes parents have to work extra hard just to make the ends meet. And I really, really regret sometimes making pressure on my mom when I was younger. You know, I have to get the best skateboard. I had to get ice cream shoes, or you know, fat farms, or all these different things. Put pressure on them. I never really looked at that. And it's only until I got out of school and I realized that, you know, I can't depend on my mom to do these things anymore. And engaging into work, engaging into community service, like you say, walk the dogs in the Humane Society. It gives a big relief when you can walk down the end of the Port Road, come back and sit down with the dog in the little gated area that A.L. Thompson provide. And these are the type of things that I think that people should engage in. And it's a difficult thing when you have to bring these misfits up that they already have a how you call it now, they already know what they want, and it might not be the best option, but they feel like this right because nobody's telling them it's wrong.
Right.
Yeah. So
yes, I appreciate that. Some good insight.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, call in, folks. 936 Bobo is the telephone number. Absolutely. Some really good points there. You've got to get your children involved in things. I remember Alric Lindsay, when he's running for politics, we did a interview series with some of the candidates, and he talked about how, as a young man, he grew up in a household where, his brother was in jail. His brother was considered one of the baddest gangsters in Cayman. He might still hold that record. I don't really know. Their family came by way of Jamaica. And, he said that sometimes he was even afraid to have a conversation with his brother, like if kids were picking on him or whatever, because his brother would go and beat those kids up for him, even if he didn't ask him to. And so one of the things he recognized, though, is that if he wanted to be different than his brother, he didn't want to end up in jail, that one way to get out was to get an education so that you actually had options in life, right? Because an education isn't just about a piece of paper. It's about you being able to think for yourself. And when you can think for yourself, nobody in this world can't dictate to you what is in your head. You can receive it, read it, receive it, digest it, and reject it. That is on you. You've got the choice. So many people believe foolishness because it's almost like they don't have a choice. Like they've just grown up like, oh yeah, they can't think for themselves. But one of the things he also shared was how getting involved in certain activities, like I think it was squash for him, where he was exposed to people on the other side of the train tracks. The other side of Windsor Park, right? Yes, so on the other side of the bush, it's South Sound, and they live a very different life. So by him getting into this white sport, squash, all of a sudden he was exposed to different kids, how they live differently, their families do things differently. He got to travel, to go on trips to represent Cayman. And one of the first lessons he learned out of all of that is when he was trying to get a scholarship to go to university. Lo and behold, he walks into a boardroom, and who was there? One of the parents of those kids who remembered him. Hey, you're that little kid who was actually pretty good at playing the white man sport, at playing squash. I know he didn't say that, but I'm just breaking it down to y'all, right? And all of a sudden, he learned the importance of networking. Maybe at the time he didn't know what it was called, but this is how people, oh, you're so-and-so's child. Or you were, I remember you. You worked hard on the squash club. You were always well behaved, had your manners about you. Now you're at one of the Fab Four accounting firms, and I'm a partner here. I bet you didn't know that when you're playing squash and traveling with us. I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm going to give you a scholarship because I've seen a little bit of your discipline and what you can do. Interesting, isn't it? This is the real world. Young people will help you when you help yourself. This is why when you get to be in your teens, you can't be using your family as an excuse for all your bad decisions. We get it. We get the setup. But you can start making decisions for yourself. Albert talked about how his mom was like, family member, like, why do you want to get involved in squash? Black people don't play squash. We play basketball and football, and we limit ourselves in our heads. And he's like, nope, somebody approached me. Somebody said, oh, you could do well with this sport. How about it? And he was like, okay, I guess I got some athletic capability. Don't limit yourself, folks. Miss Irvelin says, I left Jamaica as a hairdresser, worked at a car wash, sold hot dogs at the South Terminal, pumped gas, and now I'm a boss. I started at the bottom. Aliana says, we can say that it's a combination of societal status, social upbringing, and mindset. We live in an age where media has now dictated it's okay to be flawed, and we don't challenge these ideas as just wrong. Well, there's nothing wrong with being flawed because every one of us is flawed. Nobody's perfect. But the idea that you can improve your life, you're flawed, but you don't accept that just because I'm flawed, well, I'm going to be flawed forever in this particular way. You accept that you can change and you can mature and you can do better. Ms. Brenda says, Sandra, even though fathers were absent, somehow we got a better product of people, both men and women in every sphere, unlike what's produced today. I don't know if I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think even today, we have a lot of families that are doing well. A lot of Caymanians are doing the right thing by their kids. They're doing the right thing by their families. But it's the 10% that isn't, or the 20% that isn't, that wreaks havoc on our society. And to be fair, they probably always existed somewhere in society, even back then. Yeah. And they've always had, a really, really negative impact on our society. Maybe that percentage is growing, or we're just more cognizant of their existence. Because, we hear everything now that goes on. Ali says, so true, Sandy. My older sisters always expressed their jealousy that my brother and I had a better version of my dad, and I couldn't understand why for years until I grew up. That's why Ali, this is important too. When you're a young person and you're thinking about, or not thinking about, as normally is the case, having children, you got to think about this. The parent that I would have been in my 20s, I'm glad I didn't have children in my 20s or even my 30s, because I would not have been the parent that I am today, a more conscious and aware parent who gets a lot of things. I wouldn't have been a calm parent. Child, I would have been that crazy parent that I keep talking about, who is yelling and screaming down the place and licking their children and dragging them and, acting like a lunatic. That would have been me in my 20s and maybe part of my 30s. So there's something to be said, even Ali, for waiting until you have children later on. Now, I got a little sort of a funny skit on that note to share with you guys. Have a listen to this one.
Hey, young man, that's enough screen time now. No, let me finish. Oh, shit, we got a live one. Huh?
Okay, so this person is playing the youngest, the oldest, and then the middle child. So the mother, for just a benefit for people in the radio, the mother walks up to the youngest, who's on the iPad, said, okay, that's enough screen time. And then the other two are commenting, the oldest and the middle child are commenting, like, oh God, he don't know what he doing. Look, he ain't get one box and whatever. But listen to how it plays out.
Okay, young man, that's enough screen time now. No, let me finish. Oh shit, we got a live one. Huh? Oh no. Listen here, young man. No, you listen. Oh my God, he wants an early funeral. He'll be okay if he backtracks and apologizes, though. I hate this place! So what kind of flowers do you think he wants at his funeral? I don't think he's getting a funeral at this point. If that was one of us, we'd be lucky to get cremated in a bonfire out back. True. Yeah. Fine. 20 more minutes. Yay! What the fuck? Are you kidding me? Where's the justice? Where's the repercussion? You didn't even give him a 1, 2, 3 count. Oh, you guys are so dramatic. If that was one of us, we'd be practicing handshakes with the Grim Reaper. Oh, yeah, whatever. Are you serious? Oh, you little bitch.
So the younger one seems to be a little bit wiser with certain things. And all of a sudden the mother isn't the mother that she used to be, right? Because like the older kids said, boy, they would have been shaking hands with the Grim Reaper. And now the youngest kid comes around and the mother probably is just like, oh, I can't even stress, this last child. Maybe, younger children and families tend to get away with a lot anyway when you're the youngest, right? You're the baby of the family, that sort of thing. It's funny, but it has a lot of truth to it as well, huh? Miss Darlene says, I went to Triple C and a prefect and a student council rep and president in my senior year. We played very much a part, as it mentioned. It played very much a part. Charles, good morning. Let me just say, I think I lost that comment of Charles. Hold on one second. There we go. Well, that's why that officer was removed. She was working to develop key men and youth. This is just what system doesn't want. I don't know why she was removed. I mean, the RCIPS seems to have not just removed her, but there's been something with community officers. But, community policing and community officers play a really, 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 really important role. And so I would like for the RCIPS to tell us, where she's at, and if they can bring someone back who can continue some of the programs that she started and who are just as passionate about our young people. Gabby says that they're too busy fighting against the PAC government instead of doing their jobs. Thanks, Miss Dean, for the advice on the sleeping. Trust me, I know. I'm trying to get there, honey chill. Trying to get there. Good morning, caller. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Sandy. I don't know if you remember some time back, I don't know which government it was, that it was proposed that we have district councils, and never heard anything much about it. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it until when I moved away in the UK. Now, I don't know what the plan was for here, but I have seen how district, well, we would call it district council, area councils do very well, in your community. A few days ago, I heard a lady call about the graveyards, cemeteries, how the conditions is, and I find being a part of a council back where I live now, it is very, very, very beneficial, because every council has its leaders. You volunteer, of course, and things like that are done, and it takes the pressure off of the government a lot, because what we do, we organize fundraisings. We have different way of making, money that the government don't have to put in. And then the best thing about it, it's like a neighborhood watch. So crime reduces, depends again on the council that you're in. Not all is perfect, but I must say, I live in a very good council area, and we just look out for each other. You have the same community type policeman that walks and patrol. You can call them in at any time. You have their number. They come in, whether you see any activity, they tell you to report it, and your council police or whoever your foot patrol person come. But the main thing is, it's that closer knit of I guess community, and you can be peer counselors. They send you away if you want to do training to be counselors or whatever, whether it's from your church or whatever. And I think it's something that should be thought about here. I know Mr. Miller in Northside had the only one that I knew at that time, and I don't know what happened that we just not came through with that, because it could be a beneficiary, and it could help a lot, and government again would get the help of not having to spend so much money that they claim that we don't have. So I just thought about that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, some good points there for sure. District councils, we're still waiting to hear if this government will deliver on those. Ms. Darlene also says that, Sandy, every single district or MP needs to show us what they're doing or what they have done. Well, they're almost halfway through their tenure come March, April. And you better believe that during election time, we're going to have some questions about what they have done and how long they waited to actually get it done. Miss Lucille says, good morning, Sandy. I'm here. You touch a point this morning. They have too many kids. They throw the first one under the bus and forget about it when all the attention focuses on the last one. I know what I'm talking about. but I'm not going to say too much for now, but I might have to put some people on Mall Road soon. I have no shame. I have a big mouth when I'm ready. Love you all. My dear, what a mess. Jim says a good playoff with that video, and Alejandro says that he can also relate. And naturally, I think depending on where you show up in your family, you can definitely relate to the differences of where you fall. So we've got one person that says, morning, yes, me too, love salads. This other person says, Sandy, morning, listening to your show and hoping that you and your aunt were able to have good talks and reflect over these things. The interesting thing about it is you have to sometimes just accept people as they are. And it's tough in life because, especially if you have control tendencies, you want to change people, and you cannot change people. You accept them as who they are. When people come into your life a certain way, it's who they are. So over the years, after I moved out, I chose to maintain a relationship with her. It was difficult at times because she still was trying to control me, even though I was no longer living in her household. And I learned how to have healthier boundaries with her. So I dictated things on my terms when I was going to visit. And then when she would start to go a little bit crazy with the conversation about things that she wanted to control in my life, I would say, no, Aunt Lottie, that's not going to work. And I just tried to do it in as respectful a manner as possible. This other person says, great topic this morning. We need to get away from this expectation as a society that it's everyone else's responsibility to raise the children that they made the decision to lay down and make. They don't want to nurture their children, just want government-sponsored everything. Parents need to take their responsibilities seriously and put in the work to raise their families. Being spoon-fed by agencies isn't helping anyone, but is further adding to the societal problems we have. So the young men involved in the Burger King incident, we have identified who they are. There was a reward being offered. And trust me, young people wanted that reward. They were calling me. They were so funny. One of them called me from a blocked number. And normally I don't answer blocked number calls, but I answered it. She identified herself, Miss Sandy, this is so-and-so. And I'm thinking, why you call me from blocked number if you're going to just tell me your full name anyway? But she's like, I got the names. But by then I already had them. It took no time at all for people to step forward and list the names, what schools they went. This one go to John Gray, year 9, year 10. This one at Clifford Hunter. This one live in this neighborhood and from the government housing scheme down in Windsor Park. And this one's mama is so-and-so. And this one grand is who raising him. And this so-and-so. And you can go there every evening and find them smoking pot. I mean, I got more information about these little hoodlums than I ever needed to know. And a lot of it was their peers outing them, sending me screenshots of their Instagram accounts, the works. So the police's job in this instance has been solved for them. We've done it for them. They just need to close the case and now deal with it because there has to be consequences for that type of behavior. Another viewer to the program says, good morning. I appreciate every word out of your mouth. You are a gift to us all. Running into a meeting. Thank you so much. Miss Sylvia Willis is listening to the program. She says, I don't get the opportunity to listen to your program, but when I do, the subject matter is our young people. I'm aware that I talk about them a lot because, oh Lord, we got some work to do. She says, I'd love to come on your show to discuss our upcoming conference. Best regards. Yes, Madam Sylvia. Let's definitely talk about it. This one is talking about a vehicle obstructing the traffic for people. All right, we'll put them up on CMR. Not giving them water for the first 6 months is a bit confusing because the rule is no water if you're exclusively breastfed. I'd like the idiot to give formula and no water. That baby will die of dehydration and or constipation. Well, there's water in the formula. You don't need to give them just plain water is the idea. Someone has sent me a copy of Prince Harry's book. 468 pages of it for free. How you get this in PDF already, honey child? Thank you. Oh God. The first quote. Ooh, this is gonna be a good read. Oh, we should kick off our book club. by reading this book together, honey child. This is gonna be You know, I feel sorry for Prince Harry. Everybody is like, oh, he's had a privileged life, and I'm not saying that he hasn't. But at the same time, it's a different life that none of us can ever relate to. I mean, come on. We just don't know his journey. And him sharing even part of it, I like the title Spare, because, you know, that's exactly what they considered him in the family. He was always going to be the spare, talking about family dynamics, right? There was so much stuff. William would have been treated so differently because he is next in line. He's going to be king one day. And poor Harry was just the spare. But I think his mother did the best that she could in terms of showing them both an equal amount of love, but the system, the the Buckingham Palace, the entire British country has, and not just the British country, but the Commonwealth, everybody has always treated these two boys differently. And it's just such a sad situation. So this one says the past, the first quote, chapter 1, the past is never dead. It's not even past. Woo, honey child. That is a deep quote. Who you say, William Faulkner? Wow, that's deep. That is deep. I'll read it. I'm interested. The media continues to not be very kind to him. A lot of people don't like him now and Meghan, and I don't understand the hate. I think that a lot of what they have alleged has actually happened. One headline in the Daily Mail this week said that nobody's buying, because it was leaked in Spain, I think, a week ahead of time. And their headline was, oh, nobody is buying William's book. It's going to be a bust. Nobody's buying it. And they showed one guy, oh, this guy's the only guy in line at the bookstore because nobody's buying the book. And the same day, I'm reading further. And the Daily Mail really doesn't like him and Meghan. They've made it so obvious. The same day I'm reading further, and there's a headline on the BBC that says this book has already sold 1.5 million copies the first friggin' day. And it is the fastest selling book in the history of all books. I was like, wait a minute. Which is it? The book not selling or the book selling and has been the best seller of all books ever? You see the prejudiceness? It's the man's story. It is his to tell. And nobody else can tell it for him. We can't talk about the dynamics of his family. And most of y'all know that if you were in the same situation as him, honey child, you wouldn't be handling nothing with grace. You would have been writing this book 20 years ago. You got the stepmother. She's now the queen consort. Let's be very clear. She was the other woman. That's a nice way of calling her what she is. What Miss Brenda called the other woman the other day, the whore. That was the queen consort not that long ago. But now they polished her up. And everybody's like, oh, queen consort Camilla. And I got no friggin' respect for her. She destroyed that man's marriage. As Princess Diana said, there were 3 people in that relationship always. Most of y'all would have gone off on him and her a long time ago, but oh, they're the royal family. So they can cheat and do whatever. And we look at it a bit different, It's all right. No, it's not all right. And as the child who is now, he lost his mother in a very tragic way, I would understand and can fully appreciate how he feels. I still don't know his story, and I can only understand it up to a point. But I'm sympathetic towards him. And the media continues to just be unrelenting, especially the Daily Mail. They're just disgusting and so prejudiced. They continue to be unrelenting in a way that really should not be acceptable. But so many of y'all commenting and liking and yeah, he's this and he's that. I can't stand Meghan. You don't know Meghan. You don't know Prince Harry. You see a glimpse of these people and you don't know anything about them. So I am willing to give him and her the benefit of the doubt. Go live your best lives, honey child. If you want to write about it, that's your business too. Alejandro says he wants that book. I'll send it to you. Yeah, shall we make this the first ever book club? Miss Darlene says another crime solved by CMR. Irvin says split the money between them. Child, they were all like, am I going to get the money? Am I going to get the prize? Those poor kids. I said, y'all motivated by money though, which is a good thing. Now you just need to know how to get it. And normally most of us have to work to get money. We can link those two together very, very quickly. You can get a job, young people, and make some decent money and have money of your own. Nothing wrong with working. Gabby says that she needs to collect her book. By the way, last day to go and collect your prizes, please. If you won during the Christmas giveaways and you've not yet collected your prize, today is the last day to do so. Go to Miracle Brokers. There's the box of prizes still there. If you don't collect it, we're going to re-gift them for our upcoming, giveaways and stuff that we'll have. So if you don't want the prize, you don't want to take it. I'm not gonna complain. Miss Orly, yes, message me on the WhatsApp, and I will gladly share the book with you guys. It looks interesting. Miss Brenda says his father who said that he told Diana, I did my part. I produced an heir and a spare. Yeah, you can imagine. As a child, even growing up, hearing people call you the spare, or his father always joking about his paternity, like, I don't really know who you are. That has had to have had some serious and detrimental, even as a joke. That is nothing that you joke about with children. That, oh, you might be for somebody else because you're the ginger in the family. He's had an interesting life, and I'm all for him expressing it. If he wants to write it and do his memoir, that's his business. And if he makes a couple coins off of it, I don't see nothing wrong with that. Debbie says, Sandy, I attended Princess Diana's funeral when I lived in London. Harry has never gotten over having to walk in public behind his mother's coffin at 9 years old. I support Harry 100%. And not just that, but remember now, even the Queen herself, for as much as y'all want to love her, she was not a perfect person. And the way in which she initially handled Princess Diana's death was the low point of her rule, for sure, of her monarchy. Because she wasn't handling it right. And then they quickly got it back together. And then she decided she was going to give her a state funeral and all that kind of stuff. She wasn't going to do nothing but throw Diana in a box and in the ground if it was up to her. And the people are the ones who named her the People's Princess. And the outpouring of love and support and total disgust at the monarch at that time made her change her response. That's the cold hard truth, folks. Charles says the media doesn't like him because he's now exposing white supremacy. As Brenda says, the UK split on the monarchy. If you support them, then you won't like Harry airing the dirty laundry. Harry's the bomb that will blow them all up. Kudos to Harry. I'm with you, Ms. Brenda. Debbie ordered the book, says she has to wait 2 weeks. Girl, I'll send it to you in PDF. You can start reading it now. Alejandro says, yes, make that book club, Sandy, an after hour segment. Ooh la la. You know, Alejandro, you've given me an idea. So we could do the book club, not on this show, but we could do it as like a private group, and we get on and we chat about it. I like that idea, Alejandro. Support for Harry, pre-ordered on Kindle, says Natalia. Nice. Good for you. Yes, let's read Spare together, says Darlene. I'm in. Debbie says, Charles Whitaker, kaboom! Let me give you a kaboom. Kaboom! Shannon says, I can't stand that the English public are all critiquing him. Some English people here even saying Harry is spoiled. Such heartless people they are. Child, they've not walked a minute in his shoes. They have no clue. No clue. Zero clue. And, I say, Harry, it's your life. It's your story. The man really isn't hurting anybody. Yes, he's airing some dirty laundry, but sometimes that's how you get things done. You air dirty laundry so it can be washed and cleaned. And hopefully the next generation will be better off for it. When you continue to hide things and hide behind the monarch, right? Nothing gets any better. Darlene says Princess Di went black and brown and never went back. Honey, chill. Don't get them started about that because they're not ready. Miss Brenda says the book is available on Amazon. Great idea, Alejandro. Yes, I love it. That's why this community is the best. Shelly says, let's read Spare. I'm in. What's up, me? We're going to do it. And, oh, yes, another person said I'd appreciate a copy as well. Not a problem. We're going to read this book, honey, chill. Good morning. This person says, oh, yes, avocado salad. Good morning. I know the topic is different this morning, but will you bring the MLA in charge of housing to qualify for a house of $300,000? You need to make $8,000. How people will apply for a house with the bank? Who's telling you that's the qualification now? It's not easy. That's for sure. And you better believe me when I tell you, you better have a spouse or somebody else going in with you. Here's an update. So the stalker woman, the Dominican, has been arrested today. Somebody listening. Woo! Let me show y'all some pictures of her, child, because I found her. She actually messaged us. She was trying to call me on Instagram. Now, I don't take Instagram calls, so I didn't see it until after the fact. But my dear, look at her. Trying to call us. Look at you. That bunk, it looks so friggin' fake. I don't know if that's injectables or if she's wearing a bunker pad. But this is what that Caymanian foo-foo husband went and picked up. And she's been tormenting the wife. And so now I've been reliably informed that she was arrested today and they're interviewing her. And the woman says, thanks for hearing and listening and having me on the show. I'm praying it will all stop now. So look at that. CMR getting results, honey child. I tell ya. Yes, sir. Woo! Hopefully she'll behave herself now that she can see that police can take it serious. They're not playing with you no more, mamacita. You better siéntase. Yes, take several seats, girl. Ali says that doesn't sound right. $8,000. Yeah, it sounds a bit much. I don't know who's telling. I don't know what bank that is, but some of these banks look like they've lost their damn mind too. So I don't know. Alejandro, Ali says, whoa. Alejandro says, look at that bonk. That all fake, Alejandro. Child, I don't know what on her is real. The hair might not be real either. She looked like she had a little tummy tuck while she was at it. She got some big thighs though. Mess with her. But yes, honey child, that body, that would had him fooled, you know. That husband thought he was getting something decent. Sandra, that deserves a hallelujah.
Praise the Lord.
Yes. Hey, look at Jonathan. Alejandro, look at that picture. Jonathan's like, Ross. Her back bigger. Mo says, is that normal? No, child, that behind not normal. And I'm pretty sure it ain't real either. That looks like that's either silicone or something else. But guess what? Jonathan says it still looks like fun, though. Man, I tell you, y'all are something else. Alejandro said the police really wanted her carried down that end of King Road. What's King Road? Where am I missing here? Where's King Road? Miss Annie, thank you so much from Cayman Brack, says the Brack young people are still reeling from how our only youth development center was taken away by our MP, especially during Child Month, and has not been properly reestablished. God forbid, this is just a matter of time before negative repercussions occur due to boredom and neglect. Well, the Brack is unique, child, because y'all got problems, but no one is willing to admit it. Drug, child abuse, and all kind of problems. So which MP are we referring to, honey child? Which of the Brack MPs? Because I know you got two. Who does that fall under? Is that Miss Juliana? That can't be Miss Juliana. Not with her Christian wearing frocks. She would never do anything to detrimentally impact our young people. You could never tell me that, Miss Annie Rose. But do tell me the truth because I want to know. No, sir. Brenda says, were they listening to my call? Child, they were probably listening to CMR and taking notes. She has been arrested. Good for the police, finally. Debbie says, I'm crying now. Crying for what? Crying that bonk is so big or what? Oh, Lord, who is this calling us? Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yes, hi. Is this Sandra?
Yes, it is.
Hi. We spoke yesterday. This is Annabelle.
Yes, Anna. You do know that we're on air on the radio.
Is this the number to the air?
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
Yes, I'm doing my show right now, and I'm on air. So I'm going to give you, listen, this is a program that a lot of people listen to. So I'm going to give you the option. I do have some information for you because I did speak to, remember I told you I was going to speak to that person, and I did speak to them last night. They've asked for you to make a formal complaint. But in the meantime, you're already on air. Do you want to share with the Cayman Islands, the people of the Cayman Islands, the story that you shared with me yesterday?
Yes, I'd like to share my experience.
My dear, go ahead and do
Unfortunate
your
experience. What happened to me for no reason, so that people are aware, especially if they're single women, what they're looking for when they're coming to Caymans, and very extensive cavity search.
All right.
For no apparent reason.
Yeah, start from the top so that our listeners understand that you were traveling into the Cayman Islands a couple days ago on Cayman Airways, yes?
Correct. And I was meeting a friend of mine who was already here, waiting for me at the airport because she came in from Tampa. I came in from Miami on Cayman Air. She came in from Tampa and she was waiting for me so we can go to the house that we rented together.
Yes.
And there obviously in the airport, there are two ways to get out of the airport. One that has nothing to declare and the other one that has something to declare. I had nothing to declare. So I'm walking briskly. In other words, I'm in a rush to get to my friend. She's been waiting for me. She's texting me. She's like, get here fast, get here fast. So I'm going through the nothing declare because I only had one bag. And this guy runs after me and he stops me and he's like, you have to come with us. I'm like, okay, I'll come with you. And he started asking me, why are you walking so fast? And I said, because I'm meeting my friend. Really? Why is your friend here and not with you? Why do you only have one bag? They started searching my bag, almost trying to rip the lining out of my bag as if there's something there. There's nothing there. You're walking too fast. And all of these, just stupid questions that are completely irrelevant. Meanwhile, they searched everything. They found nothing, obviously. So they found nothing. I'm not under suspicion of anything. They proceed to forcefully take me to a room where they told me that I have to strip naked, completely naked.
Let me ask you a question. How many pieces of luggage did you have?
One bag and one like an over the shoulder where I kept my, passport and everything.
Yes. Okay. And so you're coming through the airport. You didn't, you visited the Cayman Islands before, presumably.
I've been to the Caymans many, many years ago. I think it was like maybe 12 or 13 years ago. And it was different. Like nothing was familiar to me.
Okay. So you're coming through, you have nothing to declare. You're just looking at the signage. You say, right, if I have nothing to declare, I go this way. And someone, presumably a customs officer, decides to stop you and tell you, come with me. And then they start to ask you questions. And one of the questions is, why are you walking so fast?
Right. That was one of the questions. I didn't know it was against the law to walk fast in Cayman Islands. So I kept telling them, they kept asking me the same stupid question. Why were you walking so fast? Why don't you have luggage? And I said, I'm coming here for 3-4 days. Why do I need luggage? So they kept asking me, where's your luggage? Like just dumb questions that are completely irrelevant to anything. So I just kept answering the same questions over and over again. I'm meeting my friend. I don't need luggage. All I need is a bathing suit and a couple of t-shirts. But the most disturbing thing is that they had nothing to hold me on. Nothing. They found nothing. There was no suspicion. There was nothing wrong. Yet they chose to single me out, 1,000 more people came in with bags and God knows what. They chose to single me out, to humiliate me,
So
to strip me.
after, so let me just understand this. Even after they did the baggage search, and you said they found nothing, they tore out the lining in your suitcase and they found nothing. Then they proceeded to take you to another area of the airport and made you undress?
Yes, not only undress, to strip naked. They held me naked in the room. They told me to take my panties off, to keep bending over, squat, cough, sneeze. It was so humiliating. And they knew. And I said, am I under suspicion of anything? They said, no. And I said, then you have no right to hold me, to detain me. If you, if you're not going to let me go, then you have to tell me what you're charging me with. They started, just humiliating me. And I am afraid that if my friend was not out there waiting for me, I don't know what would have happened to me. I really don't know what would have happened. They would, because at that point, I consider being kidnapped. They were not telling me what I'm charged with. They were not telling me why they're detaining me. They were not telling me how long they're going to detain me. 3 men and 5 women. This is your tax dollars at work. One little me with nothing. I've never been arrested in my life. I have never done anything in my life. One little me had 8 people watching me undress, bent over, completely naked, with a cough, squat, and they just kept doing it. And I knew that it was for their pleasure, not because of anything, not because I did anything wrong. It was for their pleasure. They just wanted to see a naked woman humiliated. It was so humiliating. It was so upsetting.
So
it was. I'm sorry.
I know, Anna. I can imagine how you're feeling.
I don't think people, unless they go through this humiliation.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we can only imagine. We can't really, understand what you went through. But when you say they made you strip naked, I wanted to make sure that we understand what we're saying here. They're not just saying, lady, take off your top, take off your pants. We're going to pat you down or whatever. You're saying that they actually made you take off did you take off your bra?
Yes.
Did you take off your underwear?
Yes.
And they're asking you to bend over at the airport with all these people in a room. So basically,
the room was small, so the door was
search.
The room was very small. So there were 2 large women in the room with me, and the door was ajar so that the rest of the 8 people were able to, entertain themselves.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they basically did a cavity search of you.
Yes, and they wouldn't let me get dressed. And at some point, I just said, "Forget it. I can't do this anymore." And they said, "Well, if you don't continue listening to us, we're going to take you to a hospital." And I said, "Why are you going to take me to a hospital?"
Let me be very clear, right? For whatever reason, it seems like they were suspicious of you as it relates to drugs. Okay, I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know, but. In my mind, and I'd be very curious to know what the procedure is at customs, but in my mind, the proper procedure would be, if you're doing a cavity search, that should be done by a medical professional, not by someone in the airport telling you to strip off your panties and bend over. So there's a procedure, there's a right way, even if, because they have, within reason, they have the right, I suppose, to search anybody. I mean, I traveled over the Christmas holidays and I was shocked at a customs officer who was, a guy was visiting one singular piece of suitcase and he had a few gifts in there. She was unpackaging every single present, tearing the man stuff out. I prayed to God in that moment. I said, please, other people were looking at her and like, please don't let me go to her. Because I don't have that kind of patience today. And I knew that I would go off even for that. I cannot imagine someone telling me to take off my clothes in front of anybody at an airport. We would have a serious problem. And then on top of that, my underwear and telling me to bend over, they have lost their damn mind.
Yeah. This is what happened to me.
When you told me this story yesterday, Anna, let me be very clear. I don't know you from the man in the moon. But when you told me this story yesterday, 2 things occurred to me. There's 2 possibilities. that this is the worst handling of a quote unquote search of someone that they suspected of doing something. This would be the worst case possible of how they've handled this, or you've got to be crazy. And both possibilities crossed my mind yesterday. I'm thinking, who is this woman? Because this story sounds so unbelievable. I've never heard of anything like this in my life, and definitely not here in the Cayman Islands. But you know, the person who had you call me said, listen, this woman she's not a crackhead. She's not on drugs. She's a businesswoman. You know, she's never been in any trouble. I've done my background and my due diligence and my searches on her. So I don't see any reason why we can't believe her in the face of it. But this sounds really, really crazy.
Well, my friend was there to back me up. I mean, she was so much in shock as, you know, when they came out, she was waiting in the waiting area in the airport. 3 people came out to take her passport as well. They took my friend's passport, and, you know, I said, are you going to cavity search her as well? They refused to let me speak to my friend. They refused to contact the American embassy. This was all done for their entertainment. And the other thing is, they all look like trainees. Okay. They all looked like they were being trained by someone, although I don't know who was training who or what, but I was for their entertainment. They did this only for their entertainment. Not that there's anything wrong, not that I did anything wrong, not that I was involved in anything, but only for their entertainment. This is completely wrong. And I need some advice because that's why I went to the law firm to get some advice. How do I deal with this situation? Because tomorrow I'm going back and I'm afraid that they're going to do the same thing, because when they were doing it to me, I really told them that I am being kidnapped. You kidnapped me. I don't know what you're going to do to me. I want American embassy to be, you know, informed that you are holding an American citizen for no reason at all. There was no suspicion. And I asked them, do you think I have drugs? They said no. You know what they said to me? You have a loud voice. That's why they strip searched me, cavity searched me. That's why they were standing there laughing at the whole situation. They knew what they were doing. They knew.
My God.
So I don't know which official I have to get in touch with. What I need to do, you know, I need some local advice. I'm an attorney in New York. If this happened to me in New York, I knew my rights. And I told them exactly the same thing. And they told me, do you think you're in America now? You are nobody. So this is what happened. And I need some advice because this is, I can't leave it alone.
Yeah, no. And listen, I don't think anyone who has experienced even half of what you're saying should just walk away from this situation. This definitely has to be an investigation that is undertaken. And so I do have details for you on how to lodge a complaint. So I'm going to send that information to you because I did reach out to the head of the CBC, and he's given an email and contact information and how you can lodge a complaint, a formal complaint, and then they will launch an investigation. But my God, this is just absolutely shocking. I mean, I don't understand it. Even if there's a suspicion of something, I think that there's a proper way of doing things. And, you know, this is just not how you do it.
Yeah, but that's the most interesting part. There was no suspicion of drugs. They didn't tell me, yeah, are you carrying any drugs with you? They didn't even ask me that. I said, what is the charge and why are you detaining me? They said, because you have a loud voice. We heard your voice on the other side of the airport. Really? That's against the law to have a loud voice. Anyone would start freaking out, especially a single white female. Especially. I would encourage everyone to go through the same thing that I went through, and let's see how loud their voice would be. I don't think I kept asking everyone, locals, would you strip? And everyone said no. So am I too naive to follow their instructions? I don't know.
Oh my God. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm just shocked. I find it's just shocking.
I am beyond shocked. So you reached out to the head of is it
Yes.
CBC?
Yes, and
And
I've got
did
the
he say?
information for you on what he says that you need to do in terms of filing
Mhm.
a complaint. But this is
I'd like to also identify those people because this is unacceptable, and I don't want
and
them to do this.
this is what he said. He said body searches can be done at the airport, but not cavity searches. Cavity
Yeah.
searches would be done at the hospital following X-rays. There are protocols that govern these searches.
So why did
So
they strip me? Why did they strip me naked? This is a completely unacceptable. I'm telling you, they were not gonna let me go. If it wasn't for my friend, they would. A single person can disappear in a matter of minutes. Correct. That's why I was screaming and yelling, contact the American embassy. They refused. All of them. Why were there 8 people cavity searching me? Why was everybody watching me? Why was I there to begin with? What was the suspicion? They would refuse to tell me. All of this is very concerning, and I'd like other single females. I don't know if there are single females coming to Cayman. I'm sure there are, to not be subjected to the same treatment. But this is complete. This was they violated me basically, and there was no reason to violate me. There was no suspicion. I was carrying nothing. I was here to enjoy myself and enjoy Cayman, and this is what happened to me. So I mean, I would request that if I should consult an attorney and lodge not only an official complaint, but I don't know. I mean, I don't at this point. I don't even know. My mind is still racing. What I should do about this, but being violated like that and humiliated at their expense, there has to be some kind of punishment for these people.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's definitely shocking, and I mean, I'm reading some of the comments here, and everybody in the comment section is disgusted by this story, and they're shocked, and there are people who are saying that they could understand why you would have been upset and why you would be afraid. So wow. So I will WhatsApp you the information, and you definitely need to follow through with a formal complaint. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
If you need to lawyer up, because I think that whoever was involved in this search, there's some abuse of process or abuse of power potentially here, and so there needs to be a proper review. They need to pull CCTV footage. All of this stuff has to now happen.
Yeah, but it has to be formally requested somehow.
Yes,
is it only an attorney who can do it?
No, I'm going to send you the email address of how you can lodge a formal complaint. Make sure, obviously, that everything is in writing, and then that should kick off the. I mean, there's even the possibility that there might have been some crimes committed here by these customs officers. They do have a very wide remit under the law to carry out searches. So I'm not necessarily saying that a crime has been committed, but there is the possibility that if you take it too far, something has been done illegally here. So we do have another caller on the line. Caller, good morning.
Morning. To your other caller, as a visitor in the Cayman Islands, the constitutional rights that exist here in Cayman apply to a visitor the same way in which it applies to a Caymanian. And the rights that we're talking about are those that are essentially those enshrined in the European Convention on Human Rights. So that should help you understand to a good degree where your rights are, because you say you're an attorney in New York, so that should give you a good position. I think what happened to you is utterly disgusting and wrong, and I can assure you, they wouldn't do it to me. They wouldn't do it to my children. There would be a riot.
Okay? So they singled me out.
Well, they according to what you've said, is that they searched you not because you did something wrong, but because you were loud. That is
Yes.
absolutely an abuse of authority beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. If what you are saying,
caller, one quick second. Let me just join this other call. We'll allow you to continue, but we're just going to put them together. 1 second for me. Caller, just hold on 1 second here. Oh gosh, let me merge them together. Yes. Okay, Denny, you can continue.
Yeah. That's an abuse of authority. If what you are articulating to us is correct, that is absolutely an abuse of authority. There's no offense that I'm aware of on our book of being too loud with your voice. So
can I chime in for a few minutes?
Yes, caller. We have another caller in line. Go ahead.
Then give me a few minutes just to try to look at it from a different, or try to look at it to shed some light on the entire situation as to really what the procedures, as to what things happen and how things fall in place. Is when you have officers at an international airport or any port that are trained to not only detect revenue, which is a big in our economy, but also to detect the importation of illegal drugs and firearms and smuggling of anything in general. Those officers have to use the tools that they are trained with in order to best do their jobs. And the law is guides them and is made to make sure that they have the tools necessary to do their jobs. Now, arriving passengers at the airport, everyone who comes through, steps through that airport is subject to the customs laws and every other law in the Cayman Islands and the rules and regulations, and are subject to a search to make sure that they are exactly who they are. And I'm telling you now that...
What are you saying? That people at the Cayman Island airport have a right to violate everyone's rights? Is that what you're saying?
Not a violation.
For no reason?
No, what I'm trying to explain to you is that the officers were obviously suspicious of something, whether it was your actions, your words, or they received information from some source, and they have to make sure that evidence or that suspicion is clear.
So
and
you're
there is
saying
nothing
that
to worry
they
about.
didn't tell me that I'm under suspicion of
But they're
carrying
not going
drugs.
to tell you
There
that.
was nothing
But
found
ma'am-
on me. Nothing.
Okay, ma'am, can you give me a few seconds, please, to try to explain this to you? You are an
But
attorney.
you are saying that they have a wide right to violate anybody who comes
It's not
in
a
just because
violation.
they want
If you
to,
give
for
me-
no apparent
give me a-
reason. They
Give
found
me a
nothing
minute to
on me.
Give me a minute to explain to you that it's not a violation. It was not a cavity search done. It was a strip search. It is a big difference. A strip search is
Okay, so
when
sir,
a
first of
suspect...
all, there was a cavity search done. Okay?
There was
First of all,
anything
I don't
inserted
think
into
you.
your
I
body
think you
cavity.
missed the whole conversation. If you
No,
have
I heard the
people
entire
stripping
conversation.
you, bending you over, and telling you to cough and squat, that's a cavity search. Okay?
That is
For
not a
no
cavity
reason.
search.
So, sir, what you're
Cavity
saying,
search.
I think what you should do is go to the airport, let them strip search you, cavity search you, strip you naked, humiliate you, have 8 people in the room, and then we talk. How about that?
I have been there
Let's see
and
how
done
you
that.
feel.
A cavity... Listen to me for a second, please.
Let's see how you
just
feel.
Give me a minute.
Let's do that. Why don't you experience what I experienced and then you can talk, okay? Let's see how
cavity
many
search
rights
is
they
when
violated,
a
and
doctor-
let's see how loud you would be if they were cavity searching you and everybody was watching and laughing. Let's see. Let's see what happens.
Can you just answer one question,
Why?
please?
Was
Was
there, you're
anything
trying to convince
inserted-
me that my rights were not violated. What is there to discuss? My rights
Was
were
anything
violated.
inserted
My
into
body
your
was
body
violated.
cavities?
My person was violated. And if they thought that I was under any suspicion, they should have put me in the hospital and let the professionals do it, not a bunch
I
of
guarantee
trainees
you that
watching me
was
like
the
I'm a
next step.
stripper.
I can guarantee you that would have been the
airport
next
is
step.
not a stripping club, okay? If they think that
It
this
is
is
when
how they
you're
get their
searching.
kicks, they should all be fired. That's what should have
When
been
the
done.
officers are
They
doing
think
their
that
job,
this is
it
a
is
strip
not just
club.
for kicks. It was a strip search, exactly. It was not a cavity search. A cavity search is when a medical doctor searches the internal cavity of a suspect or any person.
Sir, what are you insisting on? I'm very confused. That I should have been
I am
raped?
trying to explain to you
Would that be
that
enough?
you were not cavity searched.
What
That you were
is it
strip
that
searched
you are
and not a
trying to
cavity search.
convince everyone of? That single women under no suspicion should be strip searched? And why don't they just set up a pole over there? Maybe I should have danced for them. Is that
It
how they
was
get their
obviously
kicks in the
that you
Cayman
were that
Islands?
there was suspicion because that's why you went through that, ma'am. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. The officers were obviously suspicious of you,
There was
of your
suspicion.
actions.
Did they find anything on me?
No,
Are you
ma'am. That's
saying
why
there
you
was
were allowed to
suspicion
walk
because
away
they
before you
found
were taken to
something?
the next stage. Before
What?
it got to the next stage of you were released after their suspicions were quelled, and you were determined that you were not a threat or not a smuggler or not importing or contravening any laws. Had they determined that there was still a risk,
is ridiculous. If I had any
that's the law, ma'am.
suspicion that I was carrying drugs, they should have made it known to me. At that point, I would have evoked my rights, right to an attorney, right not to be violated, and they could have done with me whatever it is that they would have done with me in a legal manner. What they did to me was something close to, why don't they just open up a strip club in the airport and have all the women there strip naked? That's what they've done to me. Okay? It was for their entertainment only. I was there only for their entertainment. They knew I had nothing. They knew I was carrying nothing.
you were not there for their entertainment. My point is that if you were a smuggler who were smuggling drugs or some sort of contraband internally into a body cavity, you can figure out
what
there's only 3 body
saying?
cavities.
I don't understand. That they should have raped me one by one, or just a few of them. What are you talking about? So you're saying if I have to be violated and take it for what it is, that my body has to be violated, my person has to be violated. They didn't follow the protocol. My voice was too loud for them. That's why they made me strip. That's why they made me bend over 5 times. It would refuse for me to put my clothes back on. Is that what you're saying? That's your point? I think you're completely out of element, sir.
No, I am not. I am in my element. That's why I made this call.
Okay, so
my
if you're
point
not, then every single woman that comes through that airport should be stripped naked. Is that what you're saying?
No.
If you're not out of your element,
suspicious.
because every single female is going to be under suspicion that she's carrying something. Why don't they just build a strip club over there so that everybody will just go into that side? Every single female should just go into a strip club there, strip naked, being violated, and then we'll see what happens to this airport.
Were you the only female on the flight?
I was the only single female, yes.
You were the only single.
Other people were in couples,
how do you
and
know
only
that?
because I was meeting my friend at the airport. She didn't come with me. But every single female in that airport should be a strip search done, because I'm no different from any other single female.
You know for a fact you were the only single female on that flight.
Yes, I do. I was in the airplane.
No, you do not know that, ma'am. You do not know you were the only single female on that flight, ma'am.
Listen, sir, don't play like you know what I know. I was on the airplane. I was the only single female on that airplane.
Okay, and you were the only single female
any
that were
legitimate
searched.
points that you would like to make?
You were the only single female that was searched on that flight.
If you keep repeating yourself, my answer is not going to change. If you keep asking me the same questions like they did at that airport, the same stupid question, do you think my answer is going to change?
I can't get a chance to speak. Can you please just give me a few minutes? Maybe I can shed some light to help
because you keep asking the same dumb questions. You're wasting everybody's time. Any other questions? Any legit questions?
I'm trying to point out a few things to you to enlighten you.
Sir, do you have any legit questions for me? Legit.
Yes, I have one legit question. Did anyone insert or probe you internally?
Okay, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Your meaning of a cavity search.
You're completely, so you're saying that I should have been raped with something. No.
I'm saying that you were not cavity searched.
I'm not answering your questions.
You were
I
not
don't know if
cavity
you're
searched.
jacking off right now or something is definitely triggering you. If you were asking me a question, if anything was inserted into my body, I'm not even going to talk to you. Bye.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to the host of the show then. Let me explain something to you. Okay. When officers are at the airport, they're tasked with many things. They're searching for illegal contraband concealed in suitcases, in many objects that are being imported. They're also looking for revenue, undeclared items, and they're also looking for illegal drugs, guns, weapons, ammunition, any sort of explosive device. And those items can be concealed in literally anything you can think of, including the human body. There's a special team of officers that works at that airport that are trained, highly trained, to detect what we term as a swallower or a stuffer. And that is someone who ingests large amounts sometimes of cocaine packaged in a supposedly safe package, or it is internally stuffed into their body cavities. Now, there is no other way to determine that if someone is a stuffer or a swallower, except for simply making observations, having conversations, and when your suspicions continue leading you further,
what are your qualifications to discuss what terms
Anna,
or ways?
Anna, just 1 second for me. I think what you should probably know is this gentleman who's on the phone, he no longer works for Customs, but he did work for Customs. So he's a trained Customs officer here in the Cayman Islands for many, many years. So he's speaking from a position of experience, knowing the law and having done it himself. So to be very clear about what the caller is saying, he's saying that, the customs officers have a job to do, and there are people who are trying to smuggle stuff in, even though you now do not fall into that category. They can't necessarily make that assumption at the time that you may not have been. Something raised their suspicion, whether we understand it or not. But my concern to the caller with the experience is, I understand that you're saying that there's a distinction between a cavity search and an actual search. But in my mind, if someone is having you strip all of your clothes off and you're asked to bend over, although nothing is physically being inserted, to technically call it a cavity search, you have to understand how, as a single female coming into a country that she said she hasn't visited here in a while, you're not very familiar with, you could understand you're asking questions of these people. They're not answering your questions. Maybe they were being flippant when they told her that the suspicion was based on the fact that she was speaking loudly. They should not, professionalism would dictate that you do not respond in that way. If you ask an officer of the law, and they are considered officers of the law, if you ask an officer of the law, why are you stopping me? Why are you searching me? They should be able to say in a professional manner, here's why. We have a suspicion or whatever. Telling her it's because she's speaking loudly would only agitate her even more. So some of her listeners are saying, oh, she's got an attitude, this and that. But how many of us, having gone through this, let's give the woman the benefit of the doubt. This isn't really directed at you. I'm speaking to the larger audience. How many of you, had you gone through what she did 2 days ago, would not be fit to be tied? I can tell you guys one thing. I've told you on this program before that my mouth don't join church. And this woman has not even used one profane word on this program talking about her story. And she now sees her story as potentially coming under attack from someone who wasn't there. That's just her perception. But you can imagine how she would feel. You guys think that she sounds entitled or she's being ignorant. Let me assure you, if someone did this to me, y'all would hear my effing voice.
That's why I wanted to call.
I would have blown that airport to pieces with my
that's why I want to
voice.
get some clarity. That's why I want to share some clarity on this thing and point out.
I tell you, it would not have gone so. There are ways in which to do things and to carry out your job. And if what this lady has said is even 80% true, and let's give her the liberty of 20%, whatever, this is ridiculous. And I would be
But
fit to be tied.
That's why I wanted to call and try to shade some clarity, to try to let people who don't know realize what the job entails and what persons are subjected to.
Especially with a woman. I've talked about myself being in custody where the police officers left me with a single male who was then trying to make advances towards me in custody. I had on all my clothes, and I still filed a police report against him because I was still very much offended by his unprofessional behavior. And nobody asked me to take off my clothes. Listen to me, caller. Nobody asked me to take off my clothes. They didn't see my vagina. They didn't see my breasts. It wasn't a room full of women and then men on the outside ogling and looking at me. I cannot fathom being in this situation without completely losing it. I would have boxed some officers down that day. You hear me?
Sandra, can I say something? To the caller, I'd like to ask, when the officers said to her that she was not suspected of anything, she was just because she had a loud voice.
I think they were just being flippant.
When I asked them why I'm being detained, and they said because you have a loud voice, and I said that's why you asking me to strip, and they said because.
And so my question to not to you, the other caller. What I'm saying is are you saying that when the officers said to her that it was just because she had a loud voice, that was an appropriate exercise of their authority?
No, I can't speak to that. All I'm saying
No, wait a second. Let's make the assumption that was the case. I'm not saying it is the case, but just for the purposes of this conversation, if you were an instructor and you were trying to educate me about what the appropriate actions should be, would you tell me that if someone had a loud voice, I should strip search them?
No, but if I was highly suspicious of someone for their actions, just let me explain something to you. Just give me 30 seconds.
But we're not talking about Eve. We're talking about me.
Yeah,
let me finish the thought.
Yeah, but just let me.
There's no if. It's me. It's what happened to me, and how I was violated for no reason other than being a single woman.
Yeah, let him speak. Call it.
Just let me explain.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just let me explain. If I'm going to say a hypothetical scenario to explain it, but it happens quite often, and most of the time it is spot on. Okay, if me personally or the entire office or the officers received information that so and so arriving on so and so flight is coming there and bringing controlled substance, drugs of some sort. When that person is identified, I am going to use whatever excuse I can come up with until I can properly make an assessment to see if that's a credible threat, the information received is viable or not. So if I have to say, well, today is Tuesday and you can only wear blue shoes and came out on a Tuesday, so you got to give me 15 minutes to try to find a different pair of shoes to put on. Whatever I can tell you to give me a little more time to make a proper assessment to see if the threat is viable, to see if it is credible information, or to just to satisfy my own suspicions, I am going to do it, because in all of my years, I have never met someone, well, it happened one time, but to ask someone, are you smuggling drugs? Yeah, I got cocaine. I have found drugs, cigars, everything, and money tipped around the human body, which you cannot see if you have on clothes. I've found cocaine, marijuana shoved inside body cavities. I've found it stuffed down throats.
Let me just say this, right? Because somebody said blue shoes wouldn't be a reasonable suspicion. So there is an element in law that the suspicion has to be reasonable, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that
let me ask you this, right? Is it practice? Because I certainly would not have, as much as I'm involved in this community, and here we have a talk show and everything, I never knew that they could do a strip search of you where you took all of your clothes off and ask you to bend over so they could look up your cavities, right? Even if they didn't touch or insert anything. That happens at the airport. That is not something that you would take them to a physician's office to do.
No, the physician is needed.
You're just lying. It does.
Physician is needed for
You
looking
take
internally.
someone, if you want to search their body,
hold on one
you
second,
x-ray
Anna.
their body in the hospital.
Ask somebody
If that's
to
the
bend over,
suspicion.
right? You're asking them to
Say
take
again?
off their panties and bend over. How do you verify? I mean, I'm not a drug mule, so I don't know all the ins and outs of this. But if I have something stuck up my vagina, how are you going to see it without then trying to go inside my vagina?
That's where you squat and cough. The body works that way.
Thank God you don't work for customs anymore, because if all of you are like that, women should not come here.
And the coughing, if something was there, it would become apparent to the officer.
It's all about.
And
Absolutely.
that is allowed to happen with a room full of women, and they leave the door open so men can stand there and watch.
No, I have never seen it with the door open. It's always two officers, and females can only do females, males can only do males, and the door is always, procedure is the door is always closed. I was not there, but I am telling you, the procedure is the door is closed. It's in a controlled environment, not open to the public, not open to other officers.
We have another caller. I appreciate that. I mean, we'll have to get to the bottom of this. I do have an 11 o'clock business appointment that I must get to, so we're going to wrap this up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah,
can I just finish trying to? Can I just finish putting a light on this?
Yeah.
All I want to try to say that it is impossible to detect any sort of offense when it comes to smuggling on the human body unless you do further investigations. And the first further investigation is through questioning and observation. The second stage
that sounds like an excuse to rape women. That's what it sounds like.
It's not.
Yeah,
and then
that's what it sounds like. You want to conduct a proper search, you send them to a hospital if you have suspicion. You don't put their things in cavities, vaginas, or whatever. And by the way, it's usually in the stomachs that it's not in the vagina. It's in the stomach. They swallow. Watch the movie.
No, it is not. I don't care about movies. I did this for 19 years in real life.
Sir.
This is real life.
Sadist.
This is real life.
But the only thing that I can tell you, you are a sadist.
Lord,
that's all you are. Or it is for your own kicks.
All right,
that's exactly what happened to me in the airport. You get kicks out of it.
We do
looking
have
at somebody's
caller.
vaginas.
Let's pause for a second. Let's bring down our emotions. I know this is obviously very emotional. Miss Darlene, you have a comment here?
Yes, I just want to say two things. As a former custom officer, that former custom officer has some right. But the thing I have with it, I personally have caught people that way. A matter of fact, I had some of the very early mules, and that is the way. But to detect without, you don't even have to touch them, to be honest, because your body's made up of those muscles. Just like when you're having a baby, if the doctor said to push, you can say to them, push, and whatever is there come out. And that has happened. I've been an officer in that room.
So, someone even makes the comment that what if she was having her menstrual cycle? I mean, these things can be very embarrassing to women. I've never stripped in front of anybody that I didn't have an intimate relationship with. So, you know, I'm a very demure person in that sense. So
it is very touching, it's very intimate. But in those days, I'll tell you the truth, it was the hardest thing for us to do as females. It was like, you don't want to even go there because of our own. I have found that things have changed with officers. They may take it as a joke. I never take it as a joke. I'll tell you, I had a case where a lady lined up to me. I took her into an intimate search. Did everything with her. When I said cough, there it was. I can't even remember how many packages, but they came just.
How many times, if I can interrupt you, how many times did you tell her to cough?
That they're having their cycle so that they can stop you at that point. Some of them even put fake blood on a pad so that you can deter it. But you are trained. You are trained to pick up these things.
Yes. So she's asking a question, Miss Darlene, from your experience. How many times would you ask someone to cough in those circumstances?
To be honest with you, I can't remember, but I remember the very first one that I got. The girl was to the point where she wasn't even. I just said it. Well, I didn't say I. It was always two females present, and you.
No, but the question is, how many times and how long do you keep her naked over there?
Yeah.
in the room. How long?
One second, caller. 1 second.
Because to be honest with you, those 80s and 90s, it was different. It was a lot of stuff coming in here.
Yeah.
I can't hear anything
No,
anymore.
that's
So
okay.
many people
Yes,
talking.
I'm
Sandra,
aware.
Sandra,
I can't.
Sandra, somebody has their radio on.
Whoever has their radio on and the other call,
Yeah.
please mute your radio. But caller, thank you very much. She's not able to hear you, I think, because she's on another WhatsApp call. But
I just think that we have a lot of technology in space now. We got body scanners and things that I see all the parts of the world that can probably do that. But the whole thing is about it. It's how it's handled. I had that one particular person that I found her, took her to court. She was pregnant and had drugs in her. She went to Northward, had her baby, and I was on her visitor. I was on her visitors list because I handled her so professional. Me and another officer, that we were like amongst the people that visited her up until she left.
Okay, so let me ask you a pertinent question, ma'am. Did you tell her that she's under suspicion bringing drugs in or something else?
All right, caller. Thank you. So,
oh, she can't hear me?
Yeah. No, these are people who obviously are no longer part of the customs team. To make it very, very clear, Miss Darlene has long retired. The other caller has long retired. And how long would you say that you were there without your clothes on? How long did this take?
So she kept asking me to bend over 5 times. She asked me to bend over, squat, cough, bend over, squat, cough, bend over, squat, cough.
You did it at the first request?
Yeah. No, I kept doing it.
Oh God.
I kept doing it, and she kept that. And on the 6th time, I said, "No, fuck it. That's it. I'm sorry. That's it." And I just started putting my clothes back on. So she says to me, "We're just gonna take you to a hospital." And I said, "Why? Why are you gonna take me to a hospital?" And then the men started coming in. I finished putting my clothes on. So all the men came in and they started reading me what they call a caution. In the States, we call it, Bill of Rights. Basically, you have a right to retain an attorney. I don't know. She was reading me. I don't remember what she was reading me. And I said, "Are you arresting me? Why are you reading me?"
Hello, Sandra? Sandra?
Yes.
So,
good morning. When the caller has finished that part of her sentence, I'd like to say something, please, if I may.
Yeah.
So they started cautioning me. And I said, "Well, are you cautioning me because you're arresting me? If you're arresting me, I'd like to know what the charge is." You know what they told me? Your attitude. I didn't know having an attitude, being locked in a room full of people that can do whatever they want with you, basically, is against the law. So there wasn't anything that I did illegal. They just didn't like my loud voice. This is why they detained me. There was no suspicion. There was no drugs. They knew that. They were literally, I was there for their entertainment. They were trying to humiliate me. That's what happened. And I don't know if it's because I started screaming, "Get me the American embassy. I'd like to speak to an American ambassador or a consulate or someone. I want someone to know that I'm here being detained for no reason, under no suspicion." They refused to do that, obviously. So after a while, where I kept repeating that I want to speak to an American embassy. I want to speak to American embassy. "You can't detain me. How long are you going to detain me? Why are you detaining me?" They gave me my passport and they let me go because they knew that I was going to create, a further scandal. But thank God that my friend was there. If it wasn't for my friend, I don't know what they would do to me.
All right. We
They
gotta
knew I
wrap.
had no drugs.
We do have to start to wrap up the show now. Caller, go ahead and with your comments and try to make them as brief as possible because I actually have an appointment that I've got to get to.
Okay, but first I'll ask that I don't be interrupted, okay? To the caller, I can sympathize with her experience, but surely she does not understand that she's in another country. This is not America. And every country.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Laws.
That's exactly what they told me. It's not America. Yeah.
I asked not to be interrupted, okay? I waited till you finished.
So because it's not America, I can be violated.
Now let me speak. No one violated you based on what
Nobody violated me, really.
Rude and
Nobody
disrespectful
violated me.
and what they
Yeah,
That's your take
Anna,
on it.
yeah, Anna, just let her speak so that we can get
In
through
my
this.
opinion, you were being disrespectful, not just to the officers, but now to
Disrespectful.
our
It's against the
country.
law to be
They're our
disrespectful for
CBP
someone who can
officers.
violate
They
you.
are
Wow.
free, and clearly your first behavior is what made you suspicious. And they
My
have the
behavior
right
is why
to
they.
inquire further.
Do you understand? Do you see this,
Go
Sandra?
on
It's my
as far
behavior. They had no right
So,
to
so
violate me.
Anna,
because of
just
your
a second.
behavior. Then we
I
as
need you to
citizens
just let her
visit
speak.
other countries, whatever their officers choose to do with us, we have to shut up. That's not our country. We can't demand to get answers. They don't have to answer us until they have satisfied that they are right or wrong. That is what you should have done. That's the advice.
Oh,
you
that's
need
what I
to
should have
give
done. Yeah,
to
thank
your
you.
friends.
Maybe I
Anna,
should have
sorry,
let them
Anna,
rape me as well.
Yeah, Anna, just
Because
a
you
second.
are a
Let's
white single
let her finish.
female. That has nothing to do with it. It sounds
Of
very
course
racial
not.
and very discriminating to our country. I am a Caymanian, and what you have exposed here this morning, I find it very offensive. They
You
had a
find it
reason,
offensive.
first
Yes,
of all.
ma'am. You should
Yes,
definitely go
I
to another country,
find
be
it
strip
very
searched,
offensive.
cavity searched for
They
no
had a
reason, and find that offensive, maybe. Why don't you find offensive that I was detained for no reason? Why don't you find that offensive? But now I understand that a lot of Caymans are against foreigners coming in. Thank you for making it clear.
recommend you and give you some legal advice for free. This is a good time to shut up because you have made several allegations under British law that warrant a lawsuit against you and could even lead to deportation. Maybe you should discuss
Deportation.
with the lawyer.
Because I have a loud voice, I should be deported.
Wow.
Wow. Ma'am, I invite you to go to another country, subject yourself to the same treatment, and then we will talk for no reason. What you're saying now is that shows that you are a cruel person.
Okay, so I have to.
Can I just have a few minutes before you sign off, please, ma'am?
You were even rude to that officer who was trying to explain to you what is the procedure.
All right.
So you're saying that because they think I was rude, I can be violated. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying, ma'am? Is that what you are saying, ma'am? Are you saying because they thought I was rude, I can be violated?
To anyone. And you know
So-
what?
Oh, just keep talking. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, let's just let her
you
speak.
that you can listen to your lawyer.
All right.
Okay? This is
Give me a few minutes, Sandra, before you sign off, please.
I'm gonna have to get going here because I do have I've got a business appointment this morning. So when you say a few minutes, I can give you a few more seconds.
Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay. A minute?
Make it as quick as possible.
Okay. All I was trying to explain was that officers have their task is to making sure that there is no offense being committed, and until that is proven, the investigation has to continue. That's why it starts with visually observing what's going on, asking questions, a pat down, a strip search, and then the next stage is a cavity search, and then the next stage is off to the hospital if it feels that there's still suspicion and that there's a possibility of drugs being smuggled internally.
What is it that
Including
you're
a
missing? I was
misrepresentation of what's
not under
happening.
suspicion. They never suspected me carrying anything or anyone
Obviously they
or
did, ma'am,
nothing.
because they
What is
touched
it
you.
that you
Obviously
people
they did.
fail to understand? You keep saying the same thing. They literally
They
told
searched
me
you.
that they thought I was rude. That's why they humiliated me. What is it that you fail to understand? Wow. You know, you
fail to
really,
realize that the reason you
people at
went
the
through that is
customs,
because there was
you
suspicion of
really
you.
should be trained who it is that under suspicion, who it is that you can violate. Honestly,
Well,
because
trust
this
me.
is just rude. You are being rude.
I'm not being rude, but I'm trying to explain to you that they were obviously
What are
very
you
suspicious of
explaining to
you.
me?
And until,
What are you? They
until
literally
you have
told
no
me
manners,
that
I need to
I'm
keep
not
quiet so I can
under
explain it to you.
suspicion of carrying anything. They
They
told me
were.
that
You
my
were.
voice is too loud.
So
This is why
But
they're
that
strip
was.
searching me.
All right,
Why
so
my
let's,
voice has anything to do with my vagina is really escaping me. This is my
It's a
point.
cluster
If
of
I have a
things.
loud voice, you
Attitude,
don't look up
action,
my
and
vagina.
observations.
All right. So
If you have a loud voice, do you want somebody to touch your private?
I think the problem, Anna, is they said that to you, but that was not the truth. So you're taking
It was an
that-
excuse to observe her some more.
and they should. I don't think that they should have done that, but I think that
But
Anna
Sandra,
is taking
okay.
them at face value. When they should have just explained to her that, ma'am, a customs officer might have a suspicion, and for whatever reason, I mean, they don't necessarily have to tell you what the suspicion is or why they have it.
No.
That we have to carry this
And
out.
No,
and we
they
would
never told me
appreciate
that
your
I'm
And we're sitting here
cooperation.
today.
Never.
We don't know if the information, if they received information that she was carrying
so
documents,
basically,
that
you
she
know
was smuggling
nothing,
some sort
and
of
you're speculating
contraband.
about everything. But I can tell you facts what happened to me. If we can speculate, we can speculate till next year. This is not a speculation. I'm a human being. I'm a real being.
So you have gone
who
away
was
from this
scared
conversation with
that they
not
were going
understanding
to kidnap
the
and
officers.
rape me and God knows what. It's very easy
You were not
for a human
kidnapped.
being
You
to
were not
disappear.
kidnapped.
And what you are saying,
You were-
if you are so not friendly to foreigners, why don't you just close your borders? If you don't like single females coming to this country, don't let them in.
You
but
were
don't
probably
humiliate
the
them.
only person
You
all
should
day
know.
yesterday that
You
was
should let
searched.
them see single females. You should just let them know that you can be cavity searched at any time. We can strip you. We can humiliate you. And if you're coming here, you're coming at your own risk. I thought Cayman Islands was a friendly island with nice people. This was my memory from a long time ago. Apparently, all of that has changed. I
You
will
have
relay
taken
this
nothing
to all
away
my
from this
friends back
conversation.
in the States, of course. If
folks,
you're
we've
going
got
there
to,
by yourself, you have a risk of being cavity searched.
All right,
because they like to
Yeah,
they like to
because
see
you're
you
in another,
stripped.
We do have
you're
to. We
going
do
into
have to
another
wrap it up.
person's country,
Anna,
and you have got taken nothing away from this
Can you
conversation.
please email me, or not email me, WhatsApp me all the information so I can do
absolutely.
what I thank you
All right,
so much,
thanks.
Sandra.
Not
Thank
a
you for
problem.
having me.
Yes,
It
for
was nice
sure.
meeting you virtually.
So Sandra, just real quick, listening to what she said, she was not kidnapped, she was not cavity searched, she was not detained in any irregular
Okay,
fashion.
bye, sir.
outside
You
of
are
what the
just a
office.
sadist.
Please
At
give
this
me a
point,
second.
you're just a sadist.
Please give me
And
a
you're
second.
getting your
Please give me
kicks
a
off
second.
of something. What did you want to be there to look at my vagina as well? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm a
Is that what
male.
you're saying?
Only females
That
can
you just
search
like to
females,
look
ma'am.
at strangers' vaginas? Is that what you're saying?
All right, so we're gonna. I couldn't. The computer was literally stuck, so I couldn't end the WhatsApp call. That was part of the issue there just now. One other caller. You got 30 seconds, caller. I need to put on my proper clothes and shoes, lotion up my legs, and go to a business meeting. So let's make it quick.
You think the law
Hold
enforcement
on.
has
I was
been-
actually speaking to you, Denny. Caller, you're on the phone. You're trying to speak on air.
Okay, this is me. Okay, I was one of the ladies in 2001 that got arrested in Miami International Airport. And everything, and we was arrested for importation of cocaine.
Yeah.
And everything that this lady is saying is bullshit. Because when I was arrested, I was strip searched, I was cavity searched, I was on my monthly, and I had to cough, and I had to squat and cough. And it was part of their job. That's what their job, because what would have happened if I'd gone through with 3 kilos of cocaine?
Now, you said you were arrested. Did you have anything
Thank
on
you very much, ma'am.
I just said, what would have happened if I'd gone through with 3 kilos of cocaine?
So you had 3 kilos of cocaine.
Right.
Oh, okay. So they actually.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
It is part of the protocol of being an airport officer.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
So, can I? This is caller. This is
I
obviously
have a question.
This is my ignorance because I just don't know how this works. But I mean, I've never. No. I want to ask you another question because I've never inserted anything in my vagina like that for sure. But
we didn't have it in our vagina, was on the body.
Oh, I was gonna say, how could you have it in your vagina if you're having your period? But okay, I see what you're saying.
No, but they had
Y'all had me
reason
confused.
They had reason to stop us because of suspicion, and they had reason to do the search that they did.
Okay.
So what she's talking about, this happens everywhere in the world.
Yeah. And how many times did they ask you to? How many times did they ask you to squat and cough? I mean, is there such a thing as 5-6 times is too many?
No, 5-6 times was enough because they want to make sure whatever's up in there will come out.
Until the officer is satisfied.
Miss Darlene asked me to cancel my appointment. I can't cancel my appointment, honey child, because that's with a potential client. Gotta pay the bills.
It's ludicrous. It's foolishness. This happened everywhere in the world. Everywhere.
Well, I guess if you've never had it happen to you, and so they did this type of a search at the airport. Were there any men there in the room with you, or any men that were able to see you?
Well, the men stood outside the door. And the women officers were in the door.
And were the men looking at you when they were?
No. They were on the, well, not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. I can't say yes or no because it was. I was frustrated and stuff.
But you were actually doing something wrong. But you got frustrated.
No. Sandra can ask.
No, because you're flying and tired and frustrated. Yeah, I was. Yeah, but I wasn't paying attention to what was happening.
All right. Well,
I want to ask the caller a question.
Folks, we're going to have to continue this conversation.
Sandra,
tomorrow.
I want to ask the caller a question. I
don't know if she's going to be able to answer it now, Denny, but.
Yes, she will be. She will be. Did they tell her why they were searching her?
He's asking, did they tell you why they were? She hung up already. She already hung up. Anyway, folks, that's it. I got to go. Hello. This is a potential client now. So mama got to work to pay the bills.
Do it again tomorrow. Do it again tomorrow.
Somebody has to keep the lights on. And that's not free. So you see, don't give it to you for free.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, guys. More people call in, but that's all the time that we got. Y'all try to be good. All I can tell you is sometimes it gets hot on the program. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a beautiful day.
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, fever grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the Cold Hard Truth, Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.